We got a bunch of news tonight. As many of you are aware, there were devastating fires in Maui, and they're saying it may have been caused by electrical lines. Not completely sure. Many people lost their lives, so we hope everybody's safe. Hearing from a lot of people that they have friends and family they've still not heard from. So again, I hope everybody's going to be okay. And also hearing that the devastation is worse than even we realize. But from this, we had a conversation last night about this video that went viral earlier this year of lasers being fired from satellites over Hawaii. And we talked about there's a conspiracy theory going around. Well, now there's a darker and more pervasive conspiracy theory. I should say it's spreading. A conversation about direct energy weapons. Now, there's a lot of videos that are completely fake that are going around. But I think it's an interesting conversation to talk about the future of warfare because at the same time, there's massive flooding happening in China. The reality is fires probably started from natural causes because fires happens all the time. Great Chicago fire happened. Cow kicked over a lantern or whatever it is you want to believe. And floods happened because there's heavy rain, probably. But I do think it's important to consider that we know for a fact lasers are fired from satellites. And there's a question of whether or not they're powerful enough to cause any damage, whether accidentally or otherwise. And that brings us into the topic of World War III and the future of weapons. And there's an interesting discussion to have around there. We also have this update from Tucker Carlson doing the interview with the former chief of police for the Capitol Police, revealing that he was barred from bringing in the National Guard, which, of course, just reignites this scandal we've long since already known about, that it appears they wanted it to happen. They had police stand down. Police were waving people in. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Before we do, my friends, head over to castbrew.com to buy Cast Brew coffee, support the show. Cast Brew is our coffee company. We got a bunch of different blends. We got light roast, dark roast. We got ground. We got whole bean. We have K-Cups now available. And ladies and gentlemen, the very first commercial for Cast Brew is out now. You can find it on my Twitter, twitter.com/Timcast or X, whatever you want to call it. And Ian is in it. It's very, very great. It's a horror film. I recommend you check it out. And we're going to be running that ad quite a bit. So if you want to support the show, you can go to castbrew.com, buy our coffee. But also go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, and you'll get access to our members-only uncensored shows. And if you sign up for at least 6 months, or you sign up at $25 a month, you can submit questions and actually call into the show to talk to us and our guests. So you definitely don't want to miss out on those. Those are Monday through Thursday. We won't be having one of those tonight, but smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, take that URL right now, post it wherever you can. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Paul Ingrassia.
Thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate it. Just by way of introduction, I write a Substack. Many of you may know me on Twitter. I've been promoting President Trump for quite a while now, and he seems to really like my writings. He's been retruthing a lot of what I put out there. And also, I'm a law clerk with the McBride Law Firm, and currently he represents a number of high-profile January 6th defendants, as well as Andrew and Tristan Tate in their civil lawsuit out of Florida.
That's going to be interesting. We'll definitely want to talk about all
Absolutely.
that stuff. We also have Robbie Mann.
Yo, yo, yo.
Who are you?
I'm Robbie Mann. I spread love and positivity. I like to make the world a better place. I'm happy to be here. I'm on Instagram at Robbie Mann, and
Robbie's a comedian.
an IE and a double N, baby.
He says inappropriate things very, very often around strangers.
But I'm on my best behavior tonight.
He's going to be on his best behavior, but
So-
we invited him to come hang out because we've been hanging out this past week. So good to have you, Robbie. Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, bro. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We got Phil Labonte.
I am Phil Labonte. I am Phil That Remains on Twitter, and I am an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary.
And I'm Hannah Claire Brimlaw. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. I'm so glad to be here. Serge is here too.
I am here filling in for Kellen. I don't know where he is. Probably drank Bud Light last night. We'll see. Anyways.
Oh, jeez.
Let's take it away, Tim.
Let's just jump to this first story. Now, I know there are many other stories we can talk about, but it's Friday, and I want to have a good time, and I want to talk about things that I think are interesting. And so while there is stuff about January 6th and Hunter Biden's getting his plea deal revoked, I'm kind of just like, man, we've talked about those ad nauseum. And now we got this big story out of Maui, and I seriously, I hope everybody's okay. These photos are absolutely devastating. And the likelihood of this fire is something like a cow kicking over a lantern, I imagine. Wildfires happen. I think right now they're saying they believe it was related to power lines, which makes the most sense. However, we discussed this quite a bit, the idea of directed energy weapons. And while I don't think it is the most plausible thing to attribute, there are people posting these fake photos that look really silly with it looks like a missile hitting Maui. A laser would never look like that. If they are, they're probably infrared or invisible in whatever way, and they're going to start fires. You won't even know that they were started by this. But this is the story we have from Newsweek. Hawaii wildfires spark conspiracy theory about directed energy weapons. The devastating wildfires in Hawaii have brought a new conspiracy theory from the climate change deniers who suggest the destruction was orchestrated by the federal government's directed energy weapons. Social media users are circulating photos of light beams and laser beams that they claim were taken from Hawaii before this week's deadly fires burned down historic landmarks and killed at least 55 on the island of Maui. Now, I have no idea why anyone would be like, our own government did this. But we do have this story we talked about the other day. Chinese satellite lasers recorded over Hawaii. So we know this. I don't know if this video's got it. There you go. You may have seen this video, went viral a while ago. We brought it up last night a little bit. Yes, lasers were fired, and they many experts were saying that it could have been pollution tracking or something to that effect. But at the same time, we're getting news about these massive floods in China. Once again, in all likelihood, the floods are probably caused by rain, because rain caused flooding. And it's probably a natural occurrence. Now, you're going to hear a lot of political ideologues say something like climate change or whatever, and, sure, fine, whatever. But this got me thinking about the current state of the world. China and the U.S. are not on very great terms. We've got a real risk of an invasion of Taiwan. We've got warfare happening, obviously, in Europe. Russia right now is concerned NATO is going to invade Ukraine, occupy. And so I started thinking about what's World War III going to hold? And could it possibly be that, as we know, satellites have these lasers, at least for scanning and research purposes, LiDAR, it's called. Is it possible they have any kind of weaponization or, infrared heat lasers that can actually start fires or cause real damage?
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory time. Have fun.
I mean, I think it's definitely plausible here. I mean, I just want to clarify, maybe directed at energy weapons. I guess you have in mind the same exact sort of laser weapons that the Chinese use. Ultimately, we have
They do use them?
Or I don't know if they do use them, or
we know that they have set lasers on satellites,
right?
And that could be a low power laser for collecting data, LiDAR. And we know the U.S. has developed infrared laser weapons because they've published this, where they've blown up drones out of the sky in testing these lasers. So the question is it possible to have any kind of weapon so powerful it could start a fire from long range? Obviously, people think the Canadian wildfires were started by either like Antifa, which I think is weird. I think it was lightning strikes, to be completely honest. But it gets me thinking about the future of warfare. And if this was warfare, like China having space weapons or something like that, Trump launching the Space Force, clearly they're entertaining these possibilities. What can we what do you guys think World War III is going to look like? We never talk about this kind of stuff. We talk about nukes, we talk about cyber warfare, we talk about PR manipulation, but we don't talk about things outside of that realm.
I mean, it's still, that's because for the most part, this type of weapon, if it were a real weapon, like that kind of stuff is something that, I mean, everybody here is extremely unfamiliar with. Obviously, if it's cutting edge technology that has no exposure to the population, like how much can you pontificate about it? Maybe it's a laser. Sick. I don't know. I don't know anything about lasers. It's like I know a little more about, about if it was missiles or technology that we can currently look at.
This is kind of the point why I thought it was interesting to talk about, because I kind of feel like, I said this before, we sit here in this room and we talk about all this stuff, and the security agents and intelligence agencies are laughing how wrong we are about everything, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that there's definitely, there was a reason, as much as people like to meme on Trump about Space Force and stuff, like it is legitimate. You've got multiple companies that are delivering private satellites into low Earth orbit. That means that the technology is going to start really disseminating to other countries, and other states are going to have the ability to get into space and actually do things, whether it be monitoring or whether it be targeting with lasers and stuff like that. I mean, so it's a necessity for the future, but I mean, because it's something that we're all so unfamiliar with, talking about, or at least me talking about it, it's like, man, Star Wars was cool.
I think every cartoon villain builds a laser, right? Like, we were always on this path. This was always possible.
Ronald Reagan did that shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is it is hard to know the bounds of technology that you have so little information about. And I for one, am not an engineer. I don't know anything about this. But it wouldn't surprise me if there were I'm never surprised by advanced surveillance technology, and I don't know why lasers wouldn't be considered in a similar sphere. I think the idea that you would be able to launch far attacks with as much stealth as possible without having to deploy ships and all kinds of stuff. That's probably ideal for any superpower in the world. The question is like, do we also have lasers?
Well, I have lasers on my guns, like
Low
for some
orbit
of them,
ion cannons.
you know. But yeah, like low orbit lasers for targeting and stuff like that. That's stuff that's pretty normal too. I mean, literally, like it's stuff that goes on small arms nowadays. You know, you can have a really high power laser that like will
Start a
burn
fire?
I don't know if they can start a fire, burn someone's eyeballs out, and it's
Yeah.
infrared too, and so that's part of the problem. Is it's infrared, so you
Right.
can't see it.
Well, the real question is, who originated these lasers? Is it the U.S. government? Is it China? Is it someone else?
Yeah.
We had the story a few months ago now about the Chinese spy balloons. I don't know if we ever got to the bottom of
Well, that
where
was when
they
the-
originated and whether that was a
No, they
psyop
were just
or
for fun.
something.
Don't worry about them.
That was that right around that same time is when the green lasers were actually over Hawaii as well, right? Tim, is that?
Yeah.
Was it the same?
Well,
I don't know
The green lasers over Hawaii was in February, January.
And was that the same? So it was
I think
right around the
balloon
same time
was
as the
later
balloon.
on. But they had a bunch of balloons apparently flying over the U.S. And so, look, man, whatever ends up happening, we don't know what it is they're building and what they're going to use when it comes to physical conflict. Dazzlers are the lasers that they use. I think they use these in Afghanistan and Iraq.
They work.
Yeah, and I think those are green lasers. I'm not sure. And what they would do is they would point it at your eyes and press a button, and then it blinds you temporarily. It's like so bright, the laser's going to your eye, it can cause permanent damage too. So those are actually relatively common.
Yeah.
Burning out someone's eyes, whatever. But they actually, you can buy lasers off the internet that can start fires.
Like I said, well, I don't have anything that can start fires, but I've got multiple IR lasers and stuff like that go on guns and stuff, so that you can get them low power that are civilian legal. The funny thing is, like the Food and Drug Administration is the actual administration that regulates lasers.
Wait, what? Really?
Yep.
The FDA?
Really?
The FDA, and
That's
I forget
sketchy at
why.
all.
I forget why. But it had because they're not regulated under anything for
the
for
technology
weapons or anything.
We never know. As us minions, we don't know what the certain government, what the militaries will have. Right? They could have weapons. They're not going to tell the public about it, so they can use it as warfare that you'll never suspect.
And then they tell you you're a conspiracy theorist when you're like, hey man, I kind of think that they may be experimenting with this stuff.
Right.
If you're talking about small arms, I mean, you've got a pretty good idea about what capabilities there are, like generally, because even small arms stuff, they don't go to Raytheon or people with a lot of clearances and stuff when you're dealing with like guns. It takes getting into like high tech stuff like targeting systems, missile systems and stuff like that, or any kind of like night vision systems or thermal systems and stuff like that. That stuff will be all ITAR stuff, which is like International Trade in Arms, regulated and stuff. But or robotics would be things, but now they're not like, oh, you can't know about our new rifle. Like all that stuff. As soon as they develop new rifle or new rounds, that stuff's making, that stuff's on the internet and dudes are talking about it and debating on whether it's a good
Well,
move or
you've
not.
got, people who are in the military are going to be commissioned or given these things or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can't keep those things from the public because a guy's going to have it and be like, we just use these particular rounds.
Yeah, like the stuff that'd be like top secret stuff is like DARPA and like stuff they're doing at MIT.
Satellite
or
weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Trump launches, he creates the Space
Which
Force.
is what exactly.
So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm looking at this like, hey man.
The other side of the story though is, why are these fires so bad and why are they happening so frequently? I mean, this is like unprecedented to see Hawaii now look like it was hit by an atomic bomb. I mean, this is the worst Hawaii's looked since like Pearl Harbor.
There was
then you have the Canadian wildfires a few weeks ago. New York City, it went all the way down to DC. The entire sky was red. It looked like soot, ashes covered the entire the city skyline. So this was like the worst it looked since 9/11. So why are these fires happening so frequently? What's the origin of this? Is this just incompetence? Is this an indictment of the Biden
fires
administration? I know the fires happened, but
With this one,
we've never seen them at this level of magnitude.
At least with
before.
the one in Hawaii, there's a hurricane out in the.
But they were saying hurricane
area.
force winds, right?
Right.
But
Yeah,
then there was
that
no
was-
rain.
but
There was
that's
no
what-
rain, right?
With the Canadian
That's
wildfires,
normal.
one of the theories I had always heard was that because Canada has embraced kind of progressive environmentalism, there's no forest management. And so
Right,
it's
that's
the perfect
exactly.
storm of policies that they think they're selling to you as good that are not actually good. My question would be, as the average person, should you bring back the bomb shelter? Because obviously you're not getting any information. How would you prepare your community or your family for technology we don't know about and they're not going to tell you about?
I don't
I'm
know.
just saying, bomb shelters come back into vogue.
I've never experienced the smog from the Canadian wildfires. That was the first time in my lifetime I've ever experienced something like that. But a lot of people say, like up in Montana, that stuff kind of happens often. So was it just a freak accident that all these fires happened, and then we on the East Coast experienced this unbreathable air for 2 weeks?
Part of it too was that Halifax, which is above Maine, had its worst wildfire in I think its history ever.
And I've heard stories that there are people that think they were set by environmentalists.
Yeah,
I've heard
but I
that
don't
too,
know.
but
there was, if you look at the lightning maps, you can see all the lightning in the area. So it's kind of like, I mean, you can believe it was leftist extremists or whatever, but also lightning starts wildfires.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's leftist
That's why I
extremists that are
said-
in their own government that are not actually taking the steps to manage the forest, and that's why it's across the entire country. Like my Canadian family that lives in British Columbia, every couple years there will be smoke. You can't see, some of the islands, things like that. But it's not pouring into the U.S. at that level.
I want to talk about another conspiracy theory. You guys ready for this one?
Sick.
Sure.
Let's go.
We got this tweet from Jack Posobiec. Did someone film a Chinese girl and AI filter her white to make this video that's trending all over TikTok? I want to play this video for you guys. You may have seen it, and maybe I shouldn't zoom in like that. We can get you more of the video. Let me play this video for you. Well, we don't need any of the sound. It's just a song. So for those that are just listening, you have this young white girl looking at a wedding ring, and every time she puts her finger through it, she gets a vision of her being a housewife and being miserable, and she hates it. And then she takes the ring off and she scurries away. So there it is again. She puts her finger in, and then she's washing dishes. Then she puts her finger in, and then she's folding laundry. Now, Jack Posobiec is saying, did they put it on a Chinese girl? Why? Well, first, if you look at, if you pause in some of the clips, you can see, let me see, here on this shirt, the writing appears to be Chinese. There's a couple different instances where the writing appears to be Chinese. And in fact, behind her, it looks like there are Chinese people. And the reason why the conspiracy theory here, I believe most people are saying, I don't know about an AI filter. You don't need to do that. You can just get a white person who lives in China. But the argument is they are trying to attack family values. They're trying to attack marriage and the family in the West. And this is on TikTok. TikTok is not in China. They have their own version of TikTok. This is another component of, if your kids are on TikTok, they're being indoctrinated with content that tells them to hate being in a family, not wanting to be a mother. And this is exactly it. But this content appears to have originated in China.
Right. And this just goes again to what you were saying before about how World War III would be fought. If you're dealing with China, you're dealing with the United States, you're dealing with a country that's trying to undermine our own values while also obviously being perhaps light years ahead of us in terms of the technology that they have. So, this is just another front on the information warfare that we're seeing between China and the United States, and undermining our own values, undermining what it means to be a woman, obviously. And
Attacking the family.
Attacking the family, really getting to the core of it.
Look how miserable they make her look. Like she hates it. She's cleaning things. And she hates having kids.
Right. I think it's sad that they're taking this moment like she's getting an engagement ring, right? That's supposed to be exciting. You're with someone you love. And instead it's like, if you take this, you're basically getting handcuffed to a life that you'll hate. And that's just so cruel to take something that's actually supposed to be nice.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I think part of it too is making it seem like they're not showing you the other side of this. Like she wants to be alone and still cleaning her house. Like some of these things you do anyways, you would rather do them miserably? I don't really understand what their counter argument is.
I mean, I'm interested in knowing whether this is actually a real actor or AI. I mean,
I don't think it's AI.
You don't think so?
I mean, it very well could be. I mean, AI is getting crazy.
It is.
I think
if this is AI,
face,
it's pretty
face change.
I don't think it's even a face change. It's
You don't
like
think so?
the hair. I mean, you literally just look. She may be Eastern European. Let's talk about how this refugee from war comes. They say, "Hey, come to China. We'll take care of you." Or quite literally, there are white people who live in China. They could just be like, "Hey, you want to do this?" The crazy thing about this is you need to consider this is a heavy production. How many? Let's see how many costumes there are. 1, 2. Let's see, 3. We saw that one. 4. 4 costumes so far.
It's a high budget.
Looking
film.
at the ring, decent. I mean, not super high budget, but she's got 5.
Who made
And
this?
it looks like
who made this again?
Funny Vlog 89, 6 costumes and a pregnant belly, and so it looks like 6 costumes in total, on what appears to be probably 6 different sets. This propaganda is, I think this is a component of 5th generational warfare. The conspiracy there, I suppose, is that China is trying to attack rip us apart from the inside, because there is a real concern that we're going to war at some point, and they want us off base, falling over, etc.
Plus, they sense we're weak. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
projecting strength right now on the international
No.
stage with Biden. So, yeah, it's right up their alley. It's. I mean, you would expect them to do something like this. You'd expect them to do more of this, given how weak we are currently as a country. But you know,
The thing is, even if it's not AI, even if this isn't, a Chinese production, it's still incredibly sad that our culture is now villainizing marriage on their own, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it started, maybe some of the influence of like anti-family propaganda came from somewhere else, but if it was just a regular girl who made this on her own, like that's still not a great sign.
I know it goes to show the scope of the psyoping and how many people are buying into this.
She takes the wedding ring off and's like, nope,
no.
and it's like, damn.
Like I'm the last guy. Like I'm not in any way like a conservative when it comes or a Puritan kind of person. Like
Feels really cool, guys.
It has nothing to do with being cool. It has to do with like not talking smack and then people being like, well, yeah, but what about when you were a drunk moron 10 years ago? That's more what it is. I'm covering my butt. But like, your society is based on, like, all societies are based on families first. It's okay to have like a different lifestyle and not want to have a traditional lifestyle, but your society absolutely should promote traditional lifestyles. There's nothing wrong with being like, yo, men and women should get married and have kids, because that's how we continue our society. And as much as there's a lot of people out there that are screaming about the overpopulation, and worries about climate change and stuff, if I understand correctly, the fact that so many societies are getting so old now, like China and the U.S. is going to be a pretty old society, and you're having that happen throughout Europe. The birth rates are so low that we don't have to worry about population or overpopulation. There's going to be a population collapse coming. I've been listening to a lot of videos, and there are people that are talking about by the end of the century, the world global population could be cut in half.
Well,
and that means that's fewer people that are getting fed properly. That means fewer people that are working on like innovations and working on things that'll help progress society and make life better for people. So the idea that we have to limit how many people we have being born, or that we shouldn't support or we shouldn't encourage families and stuff, that's ridiculous, and it's anti-human in my opinion.
Well, and I think part of what she's objecting to, right, that like when you get married, you may have to take care of your house, or you may have children that have needs. Like, I don't think it's actually wrong to acknowledge that some of those aspects of life are probably hard, and you're lonely if you're a young mom at times. Like, there are things that we can acknowledge being a sacrifice that are still worth it. And you're saying, we have aging populations, but they aren't reproducing children. So she's saying, oh, I don't want to get married and take care of a house and kids. Like, she's definitely not going to want to take care of her aging parents, right? Like, we are breeding a culture that says, my needs and my wants in the moment are more important than anything else. And the idea that I may have to at times do things I don't want to is completely repugnant to me.
All right, and that's why birth rates are at all-time lows across the West. I mean, even in the United States, we're obviously having to replace our native-born population with people from the third world crossing the Mexican border. So, the bottom line is, you're not going to have a society that can't reproduce, that can't replace itself.
They try really hard with this idea of social constructivism. Phil, is it constructivism or
social constructions? Yeah. So like the idea that human beings make up most of the things that we do.
Yeah,
like
blank slates.
Yeah, they're
and so what they do is they try to push on guys, stop being like a guy, and on girls, start being like a guy, and this results in less families. So when it's funny when they talk about the population collapse that's coming. There was this viral story which was really interesting. There was a defense contractor put together this document that said in a few years there would be something like 30% of the global population would be reduced, or some ridiculous number. And then they deleted it and got rid of it, and everyone was like, why did they publish that? What is that all about? Some people thought it was talking about war. It may just be that, not necessarily in the next couple of years, but the next couple of generations are going to have dramatically less people. I mean, like the birth rates are dropping rapidly over time. What I think we end up seeing is, in response to this, you can create social pressures that stop people from getting married, finding girlfriends, finding boyfriends, having kids, but the desires within people don't change. You end up with women who are severely depressed, probably because what do women want? There's probably internal feelings to them that are family oriented, like just men have the same thing, but they're told basically to suppress that. Like these videos, like, don't get married, don't have a family. She's got a baby and she's looking miserable, like having a kid is bad. But people are rejecting this. What we end up seeing now is we got 12th grade boys. I guess when you get 12th grade, you're about to be a man, and they're becoming overwhelmingly conservative. You get the rise of personalities like Andrew Tate, obviously, promoting masculinity, Jordan Peterson, because no matter what they try to do to suppress it, you can't rip that out of a human being.
Seems like an indoctrination video. I mean, we should be promoting having a family. That should be the flex.
Yes, absolutely.
And being feminine. And this is promoting being masculine. And,
Well, someone should make an inverse video of this where it's like a depressed looking woman and she like goes for a beer, and then when she drinks it, it shows her just like absolutely miserable at home with like some cats. And then she puts it down, and then she looks over and there's a ring, and she puts her finger on it. It shows like her smiling with a kid, and they're laughing and they're popping champagne and all that good family stuff.
There was a reason why like mommy vloggers, lifestyle vloggers of like young Mormon women who typically get married, much younger than the average American, were so popular. They led that industry for a long time. It's because that's actually what's aspirational to a lot of women, right? They want family. They want to feel like they are beloved and that they are beautiful and that they have an important role in life that predominantly for most women is at home. And I don't think that's bad. I think that's why you have to have videos like this that are like, well, when you're married, you have to clean, and that's bad.
Right.
Like, get over it.
I would hope more and more people are beginning to wake up and see these videos and see it as absurd for what it is, and see it more as parody than something that they're actually subscribing to and believing. I know there was a recent study that came out this past week showing that more and more young people, especially people under the age of 18, men, are identifying as conservative than ever before. Although on the other side of the spectrum, more women are self-identified as liberal. So,
but I think that'll change. I think
I
think the women are
seems
going
like
to be
propaganda
pulled towards
is
the
having
men.
Quite an effect though on women, on young women,
and it's because I think women are more susceptible to social pressures than
absolutely.
men. But that also means that if men are more object oriented and women are more subject oriented, men wanting goals and missions, still of course wanting girlfriends. If these young women want to get relationships, it's going to have to be them going to the guys and then accepting the guys as they are, which is conservative values. And that's why I think we see women become more conservative when they get married. Some say there's no correlation is not causation, and that conservative women are more likely to get married. That's why you see married women are conservative. But I actually think, we've gone over this before, there is data showing that when women, pre-marriage, they're expressing liberal things, then they get married, then later on they're expressing more conservative things, probably because their life changed, they made some realizations, they've experienced things. I think that also will lend itself to these young liberal women. They're not going to want to be single. They're going to want to have relationships. And these young guys are focused on their mission and their goals. They're watching their meme videos. They're watching their Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson. They're looking at Trump. And so these young women are going to have to be like, well, I can go and insult him and tell him no, but he's going to be like, I got no time for this. I'm busy. Or they're going to have to come around to the guy's point of view, as they seem to do traditionally.
Right. I mean, from a political perspective, the society is basically a compilation of a bunch of families. So, if you can't preserve the family, if you can't build up the family, your society is going to collapse within a generation, which is what we're seeing. So, from a policy standpoint, this should concern, if our lawmakers, if our ruling class was truly concerned about the future of the country, obviously this would be a first order political issue that they'd be
they don't care.
Trying to resolve. Obviously, we're far beyond that point, but at some point we're going to have to fix the problem. Otherwise, we're no longer going to have a country, which basically on the precipice right now.
I think that's a reality, and I think a component of what's causing the inner conflict in the U.S. may be our foreign enemies. It's been a meme. They said Trump was working for the Russians. That's nonsense. But there is discussion about Russia and China sowing discontent on our social media. We have the story from the Post Millennial. We're going to go right to it. We held off for as long as we could. Former Capitol Police Chief reveals he was prevented from bringing in National Guard on January 6th due to optics. I don't like the optics of the National Guard on Capitol Hill. So this is Tucker Carlson did an interview with former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, who said that basically they had intelligence. He was calling for National Guard on that day, and they denied him across the board. I think there's more than enough evidence to show at the very least, I think it's definitive to say they were completely negligent. Donald Trump, of course, wanted more security. They said no. The media then lies, and they're like, no, Nancy Pelosi and Mayor Bowser had nothing to do with this. And now we're hearing from the police chief himself. He wanted more security and was denied it. Mm-hmm. There's no way they did not know this was coming.
No, absolutely not. I mean, as we've seen with all the developments that have come out with Ray Epps, and the fact of the matter was that this was pre-planned. A lot of federal agents were interspersed within the crowd. It wasn't just Ray Epps, and this was being planned for at least months in advance. And the federal government was basically co-opting the people who showed up there peacefully protesting on Capitol grounds, basically as agents, as goading them into trying to commit violence and inciting insurrectionary behavior. Although this was not an insurrection at all. I mean, people tend to forget that this happened in the aftermath of obviously the George Floyd riots, which caused billions of damages, looting, arson. This was nonstop being broadcast in televisions across the country. CNN having mostly peaceful protests as the church across the street from the White House was being burned down.
Yep.
Obviously, we saw it with the Kavanaugh protesters as well, storming the Supreme Court. And obviously that was excused. So there's so much tension, so much buildup for months and months and months. And obviously,
to what end?
To what end?
Because if you look at this, any sane person says the actions taken by the federal government, mm-hmm. by Milley, by Pelosi, by the Democrats, the indictments against Trump serve only to destroy this country.
Right.
They say that Trump is a threat to democracy and all of that stuff. But indicting your chief political opponent is literally just sticking a stake in the heart of the nation. You are destroying it actively.
Right.
So we're supposed to believe that Trump's the threat to democracy. Meanwhile, Joe Biden told Merrick Garland to indict Trump. Mm-hmm. New York Times reported that. Mm-hmm. They're ripping this country to shreds.
Right.
And then you learn that Joe Biden had some meetings with like some Russian oligarchs and a wealthy Kazakh businessman. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, Hunter Biden gets this very generous deposit, which was the exact amount needed to buy a very nice car. So it's on the surface, unless they come out and claim otherwise, the preponderance of evidence suggests that Joe Biden is heavily compromised mm-hmm. and is actively seeking to rip this country apart to benefit himself. And then we're all going to suffer for it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think evidence for the fact that this was planned in advance by the deep state, by our feds, was in the fact that they called it an insurrection from the get-go. I mean, the term insurrection obviously comes from the Constitution. I mean, this is obviously, a seditious conspiracy against the United States government. And the fact that they wanted to label it as an insurrection from the beginning got that, sort of in the public consciousness, in the public mind. People would talk about it. Obviously, the mainstream media would go about it with their narrative, would go crazy with it. And then that basically ultimately set up these later indictments, these, groundless indictments by Jack Smith, because, he could basically retrofit that label, that legal term, as a matter of, alleging this against Donald Trump and the people who showed up there on January 6th. So, I think everyone could see it for what it is at this point. I think obviously Trump supporters, millions of conservatives wake up and understand that, between what was going on with big tech as well, the censorship there, between the Twitter files and everything else that was going on. You think
Sam Harris is lying? He said, he was criticizing people like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, saying, you've got these people who think that January 6th was a non-event and, not one of the worst days in history and all that stuff. And Sam Harris, I personally think he's a liar. Mm-hmm. I think he is dishonest, because you can't have a guy who is famous for one of the things he's famous for is going on Bill Maher and being heavily critical of people like Ben Affleck for blindly just defending Islamic extremists and things like that. and then turn around and just blanketly be like, Trump is the most dangerous thing to this nation. I don't care to hear evidence or debate it. Like, you can't be so maybe he's got cognitive dissonance. And I don't mean to single out Sam Harris, but a lot of people who are trying to ham up January 6th as like the apocalypse. I'll tell you, you want to talk about insurrection and seditious conspiracy. You said it. Indicting the front runner for the 2024 presidential election, targeting his supporters, that is destroying this country.
Mm-hmm. I can't believe that. Well, I mean, I suppose now I should be able to believe it, but it's still, when I think about it, it's still surprising that it's so clearly politically motivated, and there are still people that are defending it. And I had too much hope in my fellow Americans, but it really is disheartening when, it's, even if you think that what he did, what he's been accused of is legitimate, that it's legitimate, he actually violated the law. It's clear that he didn't do anything that was worse than any other president. And I don't see how you to make the argument that you can, that he's uniquely bad. I don't see it, and I don't see anything positive for the country coming out of this.
I mean, it's so obviously a political hit job. They're creating the law as they go. I mean, the charges that they brought Donald Trump up against in this latest indictment, this was for accounting fraud in the wake of the Enron scandal. That's what the statute is that they're bringing him up against. And the other one is for originally for it was an 1865 statute against the Ku Klux Klan, intended to go against the Ku Klux Klan for targeting people, freed slaves at the time, using violence to prevent them from voting. So that's the statute that they're using against Donald Trump in this latest indictment. Obviously, it's makeshift law. They're creating this as they go, because it's the weaponization of the DOJ, the deep state, against the political opponent. I mean, we've never had this before in American history, where a president of the United States is going after, obviously the front runner and
now his lawyers.
And
consultants,
and the consultants, anyone who is associated with Donald Trump or went along with this. The closest historical parallel to this is when Thomas Jefferson went after Aaron Burr in 1807. Aaron Burr basically truly plotted a conspiracy against the United States, a real insurrection, when he escaped to basically Texas at the time, the land that would become Texas, Louisiana territory, which was Spanish owned at the time. And he plotted with the Spanish government to form his own government there as a direct challenge to Thomas Jefferson, given the fact that Burr had been serving as Jefferson's vice president up until 1805. So, I mean, and then Jefferson basically sent the feds after Burr at the, and the federal judge, it was a trial presided over by Chief Justice Marshall at the time, who acquitted Burr of his alleged crime. So even in that case, you had Aaron Burr, who truly went against the United States government, acquitted for his crime. So, it just goes to show how unprecedented this is.
Is it true that certain people got the call that day not to show up? I heard that theory.
It might have been. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, so maybe you could tell me more. The gates were just opened.
Right.
And people who walked in were arrested.
True. Yeah.
So if you just walked in, you
right.
go to something, you just see a gate open, you walk in, you're
not even a gate open. Yeah. So there were barricades at first. And I met a woman, she said that her and her husband showed up just shy of 3:00.
Right.
Well after the barricades are torn down, well after all the fighting. And they walked onto what is open grounds, typically open to the public, with no signs anywhere, with no barricades, with no broken glass, because there was fighting on one side and nothing on the other. They walked up to the building. Doors were wide open. Cops were waving to people. Walked inside. She said the whole thing took 6 minutes. They walked in, walked out, looked around, and were like, whatever, and went home. Then they got served criminal charges.
Right.
And they were like, we didn't even do anything.
Right.
They went to court, DC jury, and they said, we didn't go with this group. We weren't even there at that time. We just showed up and walked around, and we're told you joined the mob, and so you're criminally responsible, and now they're facing a year in prison.
It seems like a huge setup. I did know someone who was in jail during that time period, and it seems like, even rapists and people that commit serious crimes can get out of jail quicker than some of the people that were involved with this, correct?
I mean, that's how they're being treated. I mean, they're put away in the DC gulag, and, we have to encourage our lawmakers, especially Republicans, to speak out against this, because people are languishing behind bars, and they're being, treated worse than domestic terrorists. I mean, they are being labeled domestic
So
terrorists.
do you think it
point.
was? Do you think it was a setup?
It seems that way. I mean, specifically in this indictment against Donald Trump, they conveniently always leave out the part when he said, "Everyone return home peacefully." We've made our point, we've made our message known, and everyone, you protested, please return back home peacefully. They always clip that out of the video, and they always clip that out of the complaint that they allege against Donald Trump, that they file against Donald Trump. Vast majority of the people there were protesting peacefully that day. From all the video that we see, these people were let in freely into the Capitol. They weren't, barging in. They weren't going in violently. They were basically let in by Capitol Police from all the video that we see.
Everything we're seeing with these indictments is basically like we're playing Monopoly, and the guy we're playing against grabs a bunch of money out of the bank and says, "Oh, it's the Murphy rule." Yeah. And you're like, wait, what is that? No, it's in the book. Don't worry. Your turn. Roll the dice. And you're like, wait, hold on. You just grabbed a bunch of money. What are you doing? No. Oh, now I got to move your guy to jail. Like, wait. Hold on. Why? What do you do? No, I'm sorry. Those are the rules. I have no choice. And we're just going, okay, darn, he got me again. It's like, no, at a certain point, you realize these charges are nonsense.
Right.
They're locking up people who bumbled around and didn't even know what was going on. And they're just going, those are the rules. Like, we have to arrest you. You agree with that, right? And people are like, yeah, I guess so.
Right.
So it seems like they just want to implement a fear-based thing to anyone who questions.
They create the rules of the game, and we go along with it.
They want to pump as much fear into you as they can.
Right.
If you're doing this, you're gonna go to jail for this amount of time, and this is a serious crime.
Yeah.
And when just walking onto grounds, there's no sign, there's no one telling you not to do it. There's
such a thing still called the First Amendment. People have a right to protest. People have a right to petition their government. People have a right to speak. And obviously, all these things have been trampled over by the Biden regime, by their friends in Silicon Valley, as we've seen with the Twitter files, as we've seen with Facebook.
To be fair, it's not. I mean, there's been a whole lot of trampling for the past 20 years. It's not just Biden.
Crimes already.
I mean,
one of the Proud Boys
of
the Proud Boys who got convicted of conspiracy, there's video of him at the Capitol saying, "Don't go inside, don't go in," and he got convicted of what? Like
that's what I'm saying. It's like playing Monopoly, and your opponent just grabs your piece and puts it in the jail and says, "Now you have to stay there." And you're like, "Why?" And like, "It's the Levante rule." And you're like, "Oh, it is." I'm like, "That's right." And you go, "Guess I lose again."
That's right. I win, you lose.
That's right. That's what they said.
That's how it works when you play board games with 4-year-olds. I mean, there's no logic. It's all emotionally based.
Well,
I mean,
to be honest, that's how you play when you're the 4-year-old.
Or when there are 4-year-olds who are like, "No, I changed the rules." I mean, it's ridiculous to have this level of government being able to manipulate things and costing people their lives. I mean, all of the January 6th defendants sacrificed so much to try and keep up. Like, a lot of them don't always know where people that they're related to, what jails they're being held in, like where their cases are going. When I was interviewing them, they were saying, we just lean on each other and we hope that they get a judge that is somewhat sympathetic because we know all the DC juries will ultimately convict them. And that must be such a terrible feeling to be like, there's no hope for me and the American justice system is going to continue to ruin my life afterward.
I do have hope. We have this story from the Post Millennial. Newly appointed special counsel David Weiss moves to drop Hunter's plea deal. Weiss dropped the plea deal that had been in the works with Hunter Biden in Delaware over tax crimes and a gun charge. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to get punished as he's going to face accountability, but I believe because of the tremendous pressure that we have placed covering this story and talking about Hunter Biden's plea deal, they are now forced to actually pursue some kind of real charges against Hunter Biden. Granted, I don't think he's going to get the charges he should get. It's still probably going to be a slap on the wrist, but he's not getting that sweetheart perfect immunity deal. Judge wouldn't fall for it. The public hears about it. There's a big eruption, and now they're forced to be like, okay, we've actually got to charge this guy for the crimes he's doing. So I do think it's fair to say pressure forces them to make that move. They know there's a boundary they can't cross, and that's where we need to be. If the issue is we're playing a board game and they keep cheating and making up fake rules, we just need to eventually say, no, you can't do that. Move our piece back to where it's supposed to be and force them to acknowledge they're going to have to play by the rules too. I think if we keep this pressure up, we look at Bud Light, we look at Sound of Freedom, we look at Hunter losing his plea deal, we can see that the pressure is on and it does work.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about forcing them to essentially play by the rules that we want to establish, because they've been essentially making the rules up as they go, which is something that I've been kind of harping on recently, like just the whole philosophy thing. If the people that are on the left tend not to have a philosophy that, believes that engaging good faith is actually the proper course of action. If you don't have people that want to engage with you in good faith, then you can't make you can't actually argue a position and come to an agreement. It's all just a power game. So I think that's probably what you got to do.
I mean, I see the David Weiss thing as more of a performative thing. I mean, this guy, it seems like he's going to let Hunter Biden off the hook without, obviously a slap on the wrist, as you said. I mean, he's a Republican. It's going to be worse
than he was going to get, right?
Right. He's a Republican, so they, it's like the same exact playbook as like the Robert Mueller investigation. They try to, pretend that this guy is impartial, that he's respected by both sides of the aisle. This guy's an institutionalist, and so on and so forth. So, that's how I see it.
I get that, but they were trying to give Hunter Biden blanket immunity.
Right.
That got pulled off the table. They're probably now groaning, being like, damn, it didn't work. Okay, we'll get our guy in there and we'll claim he's a Republican. And then they're still going to have to give Hunter Biden something worse than he was going to get. My point is I don't think we've won, but we've certainly taken some territory in forcing them to acknowledge, like, hey, that deal was bad. They tried to pull a fast one. Now they're going to try and still pull some kind of fast one, but they've lost ground. So that's still good. You got to take small victories where you can. I think, first of all, I don't think he should be, I got to be honest, Hunter Biden should not have been charged for the gun thing. Like, Second Amendment rights. They're saying he lied on a form or whatever. Nah, if you're under the influence, you shouldn't be able to be carrying a weapon. If you're not, you're of sound mind, you should be able to buy one. I don't like that charge at all. Lying on his tax forms, I also kind of don't like taxes. So I will only say this. The only issue is they'll come after a regular American for those charges tenfold.
Right.
And we need to have equality under the law and accountability. I want Hunter Biden to face some serious charges, but more importantly, I see we've gained a couple inches here. We've moved forward a little bit. We've advanced the line. That's good, not perfect. What we really need to see, and we need intense pressure on, is his illicit business dealings and serving as a proxy for his dad and influence peddling. But that's going to have to come from Congress, and they seem to be sitting on their hands.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, it's a step in the right direction, and Congress will have to act. It will have to do much more than it's already done. I mean, at this point, Congress, not to change the subject here, but they should have subpoenaed Alvin Bragg, the DA leading this indictment against Donald Trump in New York. Should have subpoenaed all these prosecutors going against Donald Trump by now. I don't know why they have not. Here in this case, at least David Weiss is at least, we know Jack Smith is a total political hack. I mean, his wife was, donated thousands of dollars to Joe Biden, the 2020 presidential campaign. She worked for a film company that had financial ties allegedly to George Soros. So, I mean, at least in this case, they try to pretend like this guy is somewhat more, nonpartisan here. But then again, I do think we have to raise the bar. We have to raise the standard much higher and demand much more from our congressmen. So
what would you like to see happen to Hunter Biden?
Well, I mean, Tim mentioned, these charges, that a normal American probably would get off the hook here, or a normal American. We basically have to get to the business dealings with Burisma, with what we're seeing with the Tucker Carlson interview of this past week between David Archer, and basically the connection there that, Joe Biden was, meeting with these people when, taking it while he should have been meeting with the Chinese prime minister. He was taking meetings with Hunter Biden and his company and so on and so forth. So that's the crux of the issue. But my perspective on this is at least, they're getting him for something. I mean, we know what the crime is. We know what the problem is. And we know what fraud this guy really committed against the United States. But at the very least, they're going after him for something. And I think, we should be satisfied with that from that vantage point. But then again, the pressure has to be much higher, I think, from our elected lawmakers. We should bring these people. We should bring David Weiss, subpoena him potentially. We should question him, interrogate him. We should demand more from our government. I mean, this guy was already serving in government, which is in violation of federal law. We should not, a special counsel should not be someone with ties already to the federal government, with ties to the deep state. We should truly select someone outside of the government, which we have not done here. So that's something that we should be looking at for this specific case here. But again, the pressure needs to be put on these people, because as we've seen, they'll get away with doing anything. They'll try to impeach their major political opponent. They'll try to get Donald Trump behind bars, and they're going to stop at nothing, to accomplish that goal. That is their end objective. So that's up to us, the American people, to put the pressure on them and keep them hold their feet to the fire, because if we don't, no one else will.
Going back, I had a question off topic. Going back, since you're pretty knowledgeable, could Donald Trump have pardoned the January 6ers?
That's something that he should do, and I think that's something that he's looking at very strongly right now. And if he obviously is reelected in 24,
because I was wondering, did he have the power while he was in office to still do that? Some people question, why didn't he do that? That's why I was.
I mean, it's difficult. I mean, he was being impeached at the time. We tend to forget that he was impeached once he left office. So there's so much going on at the time for Donald Trump that I think that question, there wasn't enough time to explore it.
The argument is that he didn't know what was going on. He didn't. Some people. He said this is actually a really great answer. He said that some of these people did bad things. They were violent and they were committing crimes. And how do you have enough time with 2 weeks to go through all this and figure out who they're charging and what they're charging them with? Mm-hmm. And the people who were charged and arrested, many of them were actively violent. They went after the fact, when Trump is no longer president, after a lot of the people who were walking around confused. There's no way Trump would be able to. I mean, there's thousands of people in D.C. There's no way he's going to be able to figure out who accidentally walked on a lawn and would later be charged with very serious crimes. You've got people. Brandon Strzok didn't even go in the building, and they got him criminally charged. So I think it's unfortunate. Trump maybe could have done something, but it's a rock and a hard place, because hundreds of thousands of people, I think, were down there that day at his rally, and then at the rally outside of there was a peaceful, permitted rally outside of the Capitol. 800 or so people went inside. They're now charging not only the people who went inside, but even people who are on the Capitol grounds with being on restricted grounds or something like this. There's no way for Trump to have pardoned those guys. There's too many names, too many random people. He doesn't know what they're going to charge. You can, if Trump had a list of everybody who went there, if he made a website and said, send me your name right now and I will pardon you, that maybe would work. But then what?
Right. He's
going to go through every single name. Yeah. One guy punched a cop. You don't want to pardon that guy.
He had 2 weeks between January 6th and January 20th. And you may forget, they were trying to oust him from office before January 20th. In January of 2021, there was a movement to get him pushed out of the White House like a day after January 6th. So he had so much going on at that point in time. Obviously, this is a serious issue, and now if he does get reelected, this is something that he would do. But at the time, it was just
he needs like a task
crazy.
force,
right? Yeah, he does.
To start going through all the names,
right?
And then it's actually really simple. You know what I'd do if I was Trump? I would say, give me a list of every misdemeanor charge, and they are pardoned. Mm-hmm. Every single one, no matter what.
Well, every charge should have been a misdemeanor.
No, not the guys who were fighting cops.
Yeah.
Like if there were a lot of people who stormed the barricades and were actively fighting with cops. Like, no, dude, you riot, you get charged with those charges. Some of those guys probably were just misdemeanors. Like a guy who's on the front line screaming and yelling and like pushes a cop probably didn't get a felony. But if you're one of the guys who was like throwing stuff, I mean, there was a fire extinguisher that was thrown. They lied and claimed it killed a cop, didn't. Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I don't know how I feel about pardoning people who are actively fighting with cops. You know what I mean?
Well, there's so much that we still don't know. There's still a lot of footage that still needs to come out, and all this is still being sorted out. So it's it's hard to jump to conclusions, to legal conclusions. I think still, even though we do know a lot more now than we did back then. But yeah, absolutely. At least as a starting point, yeah, you would want to pardon anyone who's been charged with a misdemeanor, and then take it from there. And you'd have to set up a special task force or commission to look into these charges and take it step by step. But the bottom line is these people are being treated horribly by the U.S. government. They should not be treated like this. They're American patriots. They went there that day just to contest, just to express their First Amendment right. expressing the fact that they believe that the 2020 election was illegitimate, that it was corrupted, that it was subject to voter fraud. That was the reason why they were there that day, and that's the reason why they were exercising their rights. And it was a protest. It was not a riot. It was not an insurrection. At some point,
I think there was a riot in the front.
So,
I don't think the whole thing was a
yeah,
riot.
not the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of people there. It was a very emotionally charged day.
The rioters should be charged, and
Was
the
that cop
protesters.
threatened when they shot that girl? Why did they shoot that girl?
Ashley Babbitt.
Ashley Babbitt.
Because
Shouldn't
she didn't have a weapon.
The argument was, I guess the cop said he was scared. He saw her climbing through the window or whatever. There's no good reason.
But
There is no
can't-
good
What's she
reason
gonna
at all.
do?
No good
What's she
reason.
gonna do to him? Yeah.
Nothing.
Just
And
seems-
she's like, there's a tiny little hole she's looking through. Yeah, I mean,
There was no reason to use deadly
That's what I'm saying.
force
It's
against
just shocking that there was no one really
Right.
talked about it. Like,
Well, we all did, and it's kind of obvious
Yeah,
that
it's just no one on the left talked about it.
the machine, the corporate press, the machine is crooked. But let's do this. It's Friday night, so we'll shift into some cultural stuff. We got two big cultural stories. The first one, everybody has been clamoring about this. We got 800,000 super chats about Oliver Anthony. Singer Oliver Anthony goes mega viral with song Rich Men North of Richmond. John Rich offers to produce record. In the song, Anthony grieves the separation between the average person in America and the class of rich men north of Richmond who want to have total control of decisions in this country. It's an awesome song. It's an absolutely incredible performance. Just the guy with his guitar. It's amazing. Post Millennial says up-and-coming Virginia country singer Oliver Anthony has gone viral for the song. It's got 2.3 million views in the last 2 days, and John Rich has even offered to help him produce a record. Dude, this is some uplifting news. We talk about all this bad stuff all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to crack open a beer, hopefully not a Bud Light, and grab some wings and have a good time. Smile. This is awesome. The song Rich Men North of Richmond centers around a theme of the struggling working class American being pushed around by the political class living in and around DC. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for BS pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home, and drown my troubles away. In the song, Anthony seems to grieve the separation that has come between the average person and these rich political elites. Taxes, the state of the welfare state, the death of young men in the country are all topics the song touches on. Here's what I love about this. The song has a message. It is a positive message we like. Through his talent and his merit, it has been discovered and gone viral online, creating a real opportunity. John Rich, legendary country star, is now stepping in. So we've got here a couple things. One, I want to outright just say, you get woke, you go broke. Bud Light loses $400 million. They're selling off their craft brands. Disney loses $900 million. And then factory worker guy out in the boonies in Virginia puts together a song and boom, superstar. Mm-hmm. This is more of what we want to see. We want to see people build culture, succeed in making culture, and we want to supplant the twisted woke culture that we've been seeing. So shout out Oliver Anthony. The song's fantastic. And I don't know how you guys feel.
I love this style of music, and an artist I'm already interested in, who's sort of upcoming, was following him on Instagram when I went to find this video. So I took that as a good sign. I think there's something to be said for especially this like folksy Americana sound, to be talking about like something that real Americans are facing. I mean, we can all harp on pop songs about all sounding the same, and that's one of the best things about this song. It's completely unique, but also completely relatable.
I haven't listened to it, so I have no opinion.
Wow, Phil.
It's been out like a day.
It's been like
I
2
thought
days.
you were the musician. I thought you were into this stuff.
Yeah, we're supposed to have resident rock star Phil be like, I endorse this song.
He's like,
Yeah,
I don't like acoustic
I
guitars.
haven't listened.
No,
to
but it's like, I got to be honest. I'm not a country music kind of guy. That's not my jam. But I am absolutely all about supporting people who are producing cultural works that push back on woke, psychotic garbage and authoritarianism. And this hit the nail on the head with a hammer. I don't care if a guy made a comic book, a manga, a video game, or a song, gaining traction, winning through merit, regular working class guy, hitting it big time through pure merit. That's what I love.
Yep.
You know what I heard? And I don't know, Phil, maybe you know about this. Justin Bieber. Mm-hmm. You know how he got his start?
Was he a Disney kid?
Well, like YouTube, I guess.
On YouTube.
Right?
Oh, YouTube.
But I heard
Okay.
that was fake.
Really?
I don't know that's true. I don't want to accuse the guy of doing anything wrong. I got no beef. Mm-hmm. But what I heard, so it's like he made a YouTube video or something like that where he's singing. And then they're like, wow, look how viral this is. I heard that it was like the managers planned it. We want to build this thing around him where it's like he's a natural star. So they had him do the video, helped promote it. I don't know if that's true. Here's what I do know. Gangnam Style, absolutely manufactured. I know for a fact because the dude actually, I think, to be honest, is the same guy behind Justin Bieber who did this, but actually went to a speech where he said they met with him at Advance and said, how can we make this song big? Because I think this song can be very big in the U.S. like the Macarena.
This is amazing. I'm looking at the lyrics right now. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay. I've been living in an old. This is great. I haven't heard it yet, but we
got to help it go viral. We got to help promote the culture that's
living in the new world with an old soul. I can relate to that.
I like it because like there are really cool artists and people out there who are explicit, like MAGA, Trump, stuff like that. But what I like about this is it's just really good art that speaks to a part of culture that now more and more gets overlooked because mainstream industries say you shouldn't talk about those things.
Did he go viral on Twitter? Was it?
I think it was YouTube.
Okay.
And then on Twitter, and then he made a Twitter, and I think I saw it on Twitter first.
Yeah. One of the things that you have to worry about when you're trying to do something like this, like you don't want to be too on the nose. And I mean, everyone knows what I'm talking about. Like you've seen something where you're just like, all right, I get what you're trying to do, but because you kind of don't have your finger on the pulse, where you ended up being too literal and it sounds hokey or whatever. And
you mean that song that I'm working on called "Lizzo Has Insulin Resistance" is too much?
I think you should pull back. I think you should pull back on that one. I personally think "Put the Big Mac Down" is a better title, but you know,
put the Big Mac down.
I think the same people who voted for Trump would relate to the song. It's the same demographic.
Well, the thing is, I haven't read the lyrics, but like, if it's getting this kind of response, it makes me think that you probably can relate to it without being a Trump voter. That's the thing that you have to be able to like transcend political ideas. Like this kid one time, this is a little while ago, but some kid hit me up one day and he was a big fan of All That Remains, and he was a very, very far left kid, and all his interpretation of the stuff that I was saying in All That Remains lyrics is he got the idea that I was a far leftist. And it's like, I'm not a leftist at all. There are a lot of times where people on the right and on the left are looking for the same result and see the same problems. They just have a different means to go to solve it. And I think that you try to identify things that are human without sounding too much like your one political perspective or the other, or at least that's what I think is the best way to get people onto your side.
I think there's working class on both sides that relate
exactly.
to lyrics.
It's easy to be, or not easy. I don't want to take anything away from people that do this. It's one thing to be like, I'm a MAGA guy. I'm the MAGA, like Bryson Gray, the MAGA rapper. Cool, awesome.
Yeah, cool.
That's his deal. He's a MAGA guy. Cool. But it's also cool to be able to be like, yo, I can hang out with the MAGA people, and I can also hang out with the people that aren't MAGA people.
Well, and that's
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
that's one of the things I like about this idea, like the Richmond, north of Richmond, like that's everybody in DC. That's not a political party. And that means that there actually is a lot of unity among people outside of, like working class people of either political leaning.
Yep.
And this is an example of that. We just think of it as the working class guys are all completely MAGA all the time because we assume all city people. We have a resident New York City Republican among us right now. But like there is discrepancy, and I think the idea that the political elite is actually the one making all decisions is a unifying idea.
Well, so I'm going to make an All That Remains cover band called All That Remains MAGA.
Cool.
And we're going to change all of the lyrics to be about supporting Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. Are these the lyrics to his song?
Yeah, these are amazing.
So it looks like he's calling out Lizzo here. Well, God, if you're 5'3", you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. I know news came out today that they dropped Lizzo in consideration for the Super Bowl story based on her treatment. I don't know if that's something we're going to talk about later, but maybe he's vying for a spot.
Dude, maybe we shouldn't have what was it when they, MTV or whatever, where they had the gigantic bed on stage and those three fat women were like engaging in simulated adult activities. Was that WAP? I don't know. But I'm like, maybe we have this guy on stage. And that's the message we want to leave for kids.
That sounds like a direct challenge to Lizzo right there.
How about we promote
when you were away, we had Carter on and we talked about, someone called in, a Timcast member who said, I trying to get into music, and I don't really write political stuff, but I could. It's trying to talk to Carter Banks, our music producer, about it. And we were talking about that y'all alternative, this like folksy country stuff is really popular right now. And I think this person is talented. Like when I was scrolling through his Instagram, he's been making music for a while. He obviously has picked up on something that needs to be said, and he's in a genre that's done well. And I think it's cool to see someone get this kind of recognition because it's art as opposed to just a political campaign. You know what I mean?
I mean, the culture right now is so starved for good quality, original, authentic content that obviously this would fill a void for all art, not just music. But yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Unity, baby, unity. I think you said it best earlier. I think why don't we just bring everybody from the right and left come together? And we just come
because
together.
the left doesn't want to come together.
Yeah.
Very,
That's
very
literally
Ian-esque
why.
of you, Robbie. Very Ian-esque. I was like, Ian's not here tonight. I was like, Robbie can be that hippie crystal guy.
I'm just saying, let's all come together and let's take down the establishment.
No,
That's
it-
it.
We're
but
far
it's
beyond that.
But they are the establishment.
Yeah.
So here's what we end up seeing. You get people like Vosh who say the right is inherently authoritarian, which literally makes no sense because the full political compass has libertarians on both sides. The quote-unquote right, as it's typically defined, recognizes that the left has libertarians and the right has libertarians, and they scale up in very different ways. But the left views it entirely as you are on the right, you are bad no matter what. To the point where we have people come into this show and defend books like This Book is Gay and Genderqueer that are sexually explicit books given to kids. And I'm like, you're just agreeing with that because the left tribally agrees with that. The right tends to be an amalgam of various worldviews. The left tends to be rigid. And the easiest way to explain it, Donald Trump, anti-establishment, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody would describe Trump as establishment. Now they may try to as a smear. Leftists, and I don't mean liberals, I mean leftists, advocated for voting for neoliberal corporate candidate Joe Biden. Prominent socialist and communist personas on YouTube with millions of followers said, you have to vote for Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. Me, I don't like any of them because I'd probably vote libertarian before anything else. Didn't vote for Trump in the first time around. Saw what he was doing second time around, no new wars. And I said, well, I'm not a Republican, but Trump is really gutting the deep state, the bureaucratic system, coming after the corporate establishment. So I'm going to vote for this guy for these reasons. The left then said that's fascist and authoritarian and you're the problem. And I'm like, bro, you're the people marching around with slogans that Walmart puts up in their building.
Right.
Like, You are marching alongside the slogans of the U.S. Army and Amazon and Pfizer. They are the establishment. Mm-hmm. Now, there are people on the left, in terms of the political spectrum, that are anti-establishment. Few and far between. But we're like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is economically left and anti-establishment. So we love the guy. He's fantastic. We're big fans.
I love anti-war.
Right. Yeah.
Anti-war, baby. That's when I was growing up, Democrats were anti-war.
Not no more.
Now they're the biggest
Oh, you know what?
pushers of war.
Let's go for this. Let's go for this.
I have
got
a
this
problem with that. We can talk about it later. But
I want to play a little bit of this clip, and we'll jump into this one. We got this from Citizen Free Press. Actually, Robbie mentioned it to us before the show. A clip from the Joe Rogan Experience where he says, "quote On the left, they want for war in Ukraine, this trust in the military-industrial complex. What happened to you guys? The best take on it was Trump. He said, I just want people to stop dying, and that is somehow controversial." Joe Rogan hit the nail on the head with the hammer with this one. I was thinking about this earlier. The left and the right switched. Mm-hmm. Totally switched. You got this Oliver Anthony guy playing the song about the working class, lamenting the rich corporate elites, ripping off this country, ripping off the workers, and these wealthy Uber elites in big cities, the highest income earners in the country, demanding we pay their debts for college. Total inversion. Before Trump got elected, we viewed the Democratic Party as the party of the working class. Today, that is absolutely not true. Vox.com ran the story in 2016. The Democratic Party became the party of wealthy elites. The party switched, and now they claim, you're right wing. It's like, okay, well, I'm anti-war. I'm pro-free speech. I'm pro-individual liberties. I oppose massive multinational corporations. Corporations, I think, are horrifying. Now, all of a sudden, the left, pro-big pharma, mm-hmm. pro-military industrial complex, mm-hmm. pro-war. Mm-hmm. They go, I'm not pro-war. I just think we should be
pro-censorship.
Pro-censorship. Right. All of these, it's a complete inversion of what the parties were when I was growing up.
Well, the most insidious thing about it is they do control every major institution of power. They do control the administrative state. They do control big pharma. They do control the entertainment industry and so on and so forth, Silicon Valley. But they're able to portray themselves as the perpetual, eternal victims. And that's how they're able to scapegoat Donald Trump as an elite, as the enemy, as someone who doesn't have the interests of the working class on their side.
I don't think so anymore. I think it's changing.
Absolutely is changing, and the paradigm has shifted considerably as a result of Donald Trump.
And Trump is doing better in the polls now relative to where he was back in 2019 compared to Biden.
Sure.
So he's actually now winning. It doesn't mean a lot because between now and election, we got a year and a few months. It's an eternity. But I think what's happening in my personal, I can only give you an anecdote. I have friends and family. Their friends and family, I'll go to dinner and I'll be like, having dinner with my friends and then I'll see their family members. Year and a half ago, totally on board with the corporate narrative.
Yeah.
And we'd have these discussions. And I try to be very cordial. I'm not here to run anybody's parade. Look, we're just going to have some macaroni and cheese. We're going to have macaroni and cheese. I'm not going to talk about this stuff. But if they bring it up, I'm going to open the door. Year and a half later, what are the conversations like? Now they're moderate, anti-corporate narrative. Now they say things that have me going like, how did you go from there to, wow, all right. There are these really fascinating moments where after we talk, and I show them like, actually, that wasn't true. Like, don't take my word for it. Like, here's a news story. They go, oh, I didn't realize that. And I'll be like, look, I'm not telling you what to think. Jeez. Now a year later, they're like, I don't like Trump, but wow, did they lie to us?
Well, you look at Democrats in Congress. I mean, 20 years ago, when there were obviously major a lot of the political establishment was on lockstep with the Iraq War, but nothing in comparison to what you're seeing today with Ukraine. I mean, there were anti-war Democrats who voted against the war in Iraq. Obviously, Bernie Sanders Now you look at his actions today. I mean, I don't think he's said anything critical about how the Biden regime is handling. They're basically signing over blank checks to the Ukraine, over $200 billion. I haven't heard a word of any Democratic congressman who was originally against the Iraq war criticize, what we're doing right now in the Ukraine. They're totally a uniparty. They're one step. They're lockstep on the war issue. And they're obviously, just a few years ago, Bernie Sanders was the one criticizing the Koch brothers and their agenda on immigration, wanting open borders and so forth. He was very critical of that. Now, totally 180.
Switched.
You never hear him say a word about it anymore.
The world
or anyone.
He got the memo. He's not supposed to.
Absolutely.
The World Socialist website called Bernie Sanders a nationalist capitalist.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Would we be at war if Trump was in office with Ukraine? I mean, with Russia?
Not at all.
You think it would have been
the reason why? We weren't at war with Russia and the Ukraine while he was president. I take him on faith. I know a lot of people don't like it when he says, I would have brokered peace within 24 hours. I'll get peace within 24 hours. But, I think under Donald Trump, we had the most world peace, in generations of any president. And now since he's left politics, it's created a vacuum there. And now we have the most, chaos in the global situation and the global scene that we've seen in decades. I mean, now we're actually talking about World War III as a viable possibility. We're talking about, using nukes again. We're talking about Russia and Putin potentially using nukes in the Ukraine to protect their own interests there in that region. So, it's just night and day how much has changed. I mean, I remember Donald Trump when he first got into office, actually prior to even going into office, when he met with Obama about a couple of days after
he
had
Donald
won.
Trump to FaceTime right now?
We'll see if he'll call in. We'll see if he's listening. But I remember Trump saying that during that meeting with Obama, that Obama said the toughest thing you'll have to deal with is North Korea and the weapons they were shooting off at that time. And Donald Trump accomplished something that no one ever thought would. That no one ever believed would be accomplished. He actually walked into North Korea. He actually brokered peace and diplomacy with Kim Jong-un.
Him and Dennis Rodman, too.
Yeah, absolutely, with help from Dennis Rodman. But no one ever
Dennis Rodman.
That.
I mean, no joke.
Use whatever resources you can to negotiate peace in that way. But
Trump crossed into actual enemy territory with no security detail. Incredible move.
I mean,
and he gets attacked by the left for it. So this is it. I mean, I view the left as fundamentally tribalist, and whatever we describe as the right, it's not even conservative. You have post-liberals. You've got a whole bunch of liberals who are traditional liberals who are now called right-wing, even though they completely disagree on a bunch of core political issues. You've got a bunch of people who are considered right-wing who are pro-choice, who would agree with moderate liberal and Democrat voters on the issue of choice were it not for the cult tribal behaviors these people exhibit.
I think Republicans would win almost every election if they were pro-choice.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Okay. I think the issue, All right, go ahead.
I think that the Republicans as a brand have been so damaged in the popular culture that I think that the Republicans overall probably aren't going to survive another 10 years. I think there'll be another name for the party. You look at the way that the establishment Republicans and the way the MAGA Republicans, they're very different. They want different things. I feel like and because of the way that
the Democrats are similar with like DSA and neolibs.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the Republican brand in like popular culture has been so damaged. You get people like the Daily Show every night of the week doing everything they can to discredit any idea that's Republican or that comes from a conservative.
I'd actually be more inclined to believe the Democrats are the party that will disintegrate.
No, I'm talking.
You're talking about
the brand
old
name
brand.
Republican.
I know.
Yeah.
And you think the name Democrat will first?
Yes.
No, I doubt it.
Because there's a lot to break down here, right? And that's why you said when it comes to when it comes with the abortion thing, if Republicans are pro-choice. No, I honestly agree with that. I think the left, these liberals, people who vote Democrat, don't have any policy positions. We invite these people on the show, and then I'll say like, hey, I'm personally pro-choice. And, I think there should be how we traditionally had it, a certain leeway within a few weeks. Then they say you're pro-abortion or they say you're pro-life. They call me pro-life. And I'm like, I don't think you have any real positions because all you're going to do is say whatever the opposite of what I'm saying is. And I don't see how that survives. When you have 9 million Obama voters switch to vote for Donald Trump, when you have Trump doing better and better and Trump being fairly moderate. This is by Vox.com standards, not Fox. Vox, V-O-X, the leftist Vox website said Trump was a moderate. What I see here is young men becoming more conservative. It's more, there's a bigger social path on forming on the right for young men. I believe this will create a social pressure on young women to move right, just like we see with marriage. I think for cultural reasons, like the success of the song Rich Men North of Richmond, the success of Sound of Freedom, the failures of Bud Light, I don't think over the long period, if this trend continues, that Democrat is the thing you're going to want to identify as, because even Democrats say they don't like Democrats. Now, don't get me wrong, Republicans say they don't like Republicans, but Republicans have actually gained tons of ground with the Freedom Caucus, with libertarian candidates that are in the Democratic Party, which gives people, I think, more ground to stand on when it comes to, hey, if Mitch McConnell retire. When these Democrats were chanting retire to Mitch McConnell, Trump posted it on Truth and said, yes, retire, agreeing with them.
See, I think that speaks to kind of my point. Like, Trump Republicans are not the establishment Republicans. No. And I think that the reason I'm saying this is because I think of dudes that that are in the music industry that I talk to that are completely and totally isolated from like this world, right? They're totally in the bubble. They totally like California brain, their entire world. Like, I'm the only person they interact with that doesn't have the same political opinions, right? And it was a couple weeks ago, I'm sitting there listening to them talk about like Satanists and stuff, and it's like the way that they think of it is the way that like me and my friends used to think of like Christians in the 90s. Like, they're talking about like if there was something that happened that Satan is like, there was some satanic imagery and the religious right had kind of got all up in arms about it, and they were mocking the religious right. They were going at him, and I'm just like, I feel like there's so many people in popular culture that still have a negative opinion of anyone that's a conservative, Republican, blah, blah, blah. And I think people like Sam Smith, that like his and the imagery that he used, and Lil Nas, the imagery that he used, like all that stuff is still very anti-right. I feel like the left still has the popular culture.
But I'll say a couple things. The right tends to be more reformist. The left tends to be more revolutionary, which means people on the right are going to be more willing to compromise within the confines of what is Republican, where Democrats are going to be more likely to fight amongst themselves and try and rapidly change it. That might not mean a whole lot in terms of these political party brand names. But I think when you look at, I don't see in the long run people wanting to be proud Democrats. The left despises them. They want insurgency as well. And then I see among the right people being like, oh, the Republican Party is bad, but we can change it, right? So it's the revolution versus reformer thing.
I mean, you see the internal reform within the Republican Party as it's playing out, it is playing out in the Republican primary this cycle. I mean, the old Republican brand, I think, is sort of embodied by Mike Pence. You see in his conversations with Tucker Carlson recently at Iowa during that summit they held, the forum they held, that he said his criticism of the Biden administration's handling of the war in Ukraine was that they're not sending enough tanks, that they're not sending enough money, and obviously he got boos from the crowd, and his poll numbers are obviously in single digits. So anyone who's tried to maintain that traditional Republican brand has done pretty bad so far in the political sphere. Now, how that will play out in the broader culture remains to be seen. Obviously, the culture lags behind a little bit, but I think people are waking up, and I think the Republican brand has an ability to potentially reform in a way that, to Tim's point, the Democrats might not have that flexibility, because they don't allow a voice like RFK. They don't allow other opinions within their party right now.
I'll make one other point too. Anybody name 2 prominent up-and-coming Republican stars?
Anna Paulina
Luna.
Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, up and coming. I mean, I want to say George Santos, but everyone else is going to think that I'm wrong, even though he's the greatest.
Well, let's talk about scale. Obviously, you have Anna Paulina Luna, a good one.
You have Anthony Sabatini, good friend, and who's running for Congress.
Absolutely.
Florida.
We've got let's say Matt Gaetz,
Gaetz
but he's been here for a little bit. He's getting more prominence.
Right.
But let's say Vivek Ramaswamy, landing on the scene in the Republican primary with no political experience, not in office, and boom, in a matter of months. How many followers do you have now? Is he over 1 million?
I like Vivek.
He's close.
Let me just look up Vivek Ramaswamy real quick.
What state is he based out of?
Ohio.
Vivek Ramaswamy, Trump calls him Ramaswamy, 912,000 followers. This guy is a shooting star right now. Name an up and coming Democrat star.
RFK Jr., but he's
Frost in
but
Florida.
come on. Who?
Up and coming.
Is it Matt Frost in Florida? He's the youngest member of
that?
Congress.
Yeah.
He's the youngest member of Congress. His campaign manager just launched that super PAC with David Hogg. I would say AOC, she's been around for a while. I would equate her sort of to Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
She's basically sold out.
What's the guy's name? Matt Frost?
Is it Matt Frost? Am I getting that wrong?
Probably, because there's no Twitter. I don't know.
I'll find it.
But it just goes to your point, the biggest up-and-comer for the Democrats is a guy in his mid to late 60s.
Maxwell Frost, that's his name.
Maxwell Frost.
First Gen Z congressman.
Maxwell Frost, and he's got 280,000 followers. Not bad. He's not on the major national stage in the same way that you have someone like Vivek.
Right.
So let's talk about presidential contenders. Democrats don't have a single one. Republicans have too many. Now, Tim Scott, probably not ultimately viable, but a good dude with a decent amount of popularity. Maybe a little C+. I like the guy. But, VP maybe. Ron DeSantis. Boy, did that guy do a lot of things wrong, but still a massively notable personality with a lot of diehard fans and a lot of people who don't like him running against Trump. You have Donald Trump, tremendous influence and charisma and hatred, don't get me wrong. Vivek Ramaswamy, shooting star. I mean, wow. The problem in the GOP was that Trump and DeSantis were both extremely popular. Granted, things have changed. Things aren't going so well for DeSantis. But we were like, wow, the problem is Republicans have too many. So there's another thing that I'm looking at. The Democrats' best bet was Joe Biden. And now you know what they're saying? Michelle Obama. And I'm like, is that the best you've got?
Honestly, Michelle Obama is probably the best the Democrats could possibly produce.
She doesn't want to, right?
What they did,
thank God.
What they did with Joe Biden was say, we have no one. Let's try and pull from the previous administration because we're desperate. What they're saying now with Michelle Obama is quite literally the same thing. We are stagnant. We have no personalities, no charisma, no influence, and we're trying to go back in time.
That's because the young Democrats are all Democratic socialists.
Incapable. No. I'm sorry.
They're incompetent.
They're not capable. Look,
capability doesn't matter. Look at Maxine Waters. Like capabilities, and when it comes to Congress people, John Fetterman is incapable of completing
But there's
sentences.
still a
they're not running
baseline
for
requirement
president,
to lead the
right?
party. Right?
Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
the party's got no leadership.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like
they would run an AOC if they could. I don't think she's old enough.
she will be
Not
old
yet.
enough, but she's not capable enough to be a presidential figure. She's too grating.
The other name they talk about is Gavin Newsom. With Michelle Obama.
Gavin Newsom is. How would I describe Gavin Newsom? I wouldn't call him vanilla pudding, right?
Iguanish.
I call him
Stracciatelli, is that what it's called? Is that the gelato with the chocolate chips in it or whatever? It's like just 1 degree above basic.
Yeah.
He's a C+ guy.
Yeah.
He's VP level. He's not presidential level.
Well, considering their bench, it's not that deep. So
I tell you,
right up
I
there
like
with
RFK.
Sigma.
I like RFK Jr.
I
But they
feel
don't like him. That's
but
the
they don't
problem.
like him, and they don't consider him a Democrat. They call him far right. They call him right wing. They call him anti-vax. They
Yeah.
call him all these things.
He's an
I
anti-establishment.
got to tell you, I think it's probably going to be that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as names exist for a very, very long time. They've been around for hundreds of years. But in terms of the strength of the party, the Democrats are in the gutter. And just the fact that Vivek Ramaswamy is skyrocketing in the degree that he is, I think shows that the Republicans have a substantially larger amount of energy behind them, interest, passion, etc.
Yeah.
I think there are some Democrats that people, like the media, will pay a lot of attention to that don't have what it takes to rise through the ranks of government. Because it is a little bureaucratic. Like I'm specifically thinking of Justin Jones, the state representative in Tennessee, who, is known for the activism. So a lot of progressive voting young people will think, oh, so cool. He's been arrested and he's demonstrated and he's really with the people. He's for the cause. But on the other hand, I just don't see him running to Congress and actually getting anything done there.
I have to read this. It's too good. Betsy Battle says Gavin Newsom is the Mitt Romney of the Democratic Party. That 10 out of 10. Nailed it.
That's completely true. why can't we just abolish the two-party system and have people start a new system where we
I don't
Well,
think two-party matter.
why do you think? I mean,
divide and conquer? I mean, but why not? I'm just saying.
No. But the two-party system isn't a big deal, right? So we have a primary, and 2008 you get Ron Paul in that primary. Dude's a libertarian, wants to abolish the Federal Reserve,
But then
wildly opposed, but he didn't get the votes.
Yeah.
He didn't get the votes, and so what you end up having, and you had Kucinich on the Democrat side. The primary system is the way we sort through the ideological points of who we think should be the main candidate in the end. If you were to get rid of parties, all that would happen is massive minority rule. So first, the problem with the parties, privately run, and they can kick out and boot and make the rules however they want it, so they can effectively lie, cheat, and steal. That I agree with shouldn't be the case. But if we were to get rid of the parties outright, what you'd end up with is 5 Republicans in essence running against 4 Democrats in essence, splitting the vote among the Republicans, making the fringest candidate win. What you see in Egypt after the first revolution, you get all these political parties. Most of them, 8 out of 10, are secular. They get 10% each. The Muslim Brotherhood gets 17%. I'm giving you wild numbers. It doesn't the exact numbers. Well, first past the voting system. First past the post. The Muslim Brotherhood with 17% wins. Now you have a country that's 80% demanding of a secular leader under a religious government getting religious rule, and you get another revolution. So what you effectively have with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, the problem, privately run. Bernie Sanders gets booted out in disgusting and dirty ways. That's a problem. We're not going to have a true sorting algorithm unless we get rid of that kind of private control. But I do think it is still no big deal. I would describe it that if, Ron Paul, Donald Trump, and Jeb Bush are all running under the same ticket, clearly one of them is not favored. And Ron Paul got a lot of support, but not enough because not enough people had that ideological worldview. You end up with a Donald Trump, and that's the compromise, which ends up running against the left compromise. I actually don't have a big problem with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in the 2016 primary, the best guy won. That was Donald Trump, the most reformer, the candidate who would basically challenge the system, took an axe to the system and ran on that platform. And someone like him was still able to elevate all the way up to the presidency. I think goes to show that the system still works in some capacity.
Though, because he had Fauci,
Right.
he had Pompeo, he still had.
I mean, there are a lot of issues.
He had
obviously.
Bolton.
Yes, I'm saying that's what I'm saying.
But
He still managed
there's
to win. He was still the best guy for the job, and he managed to win, and he was president of the United States. So
yeah, and so I think Trump did a net positive job, and he made a bunch of mistakes. I think the main reason to vote for him now is his revenge mission, which is just like, okay, if you wanted real reform or revolution, Trump's your guy.
I mean, his platform is retribution. I mean, so
love it.
I think the media telling you how bad he is, it makes you want to question what if you've been indoctrinated to believe that he's like this horrible person. I mean, I definitely think, why is everyone telling you he's bad, he's this, he's that? It's a little interesting that there's never any positive media coverage of him anywhere.
Never. 98% negative. Obama was the inversion.
Yeah. I mean,
Obama blew up kids, and they're like, remember when the worst scandal about Obama was a tear in the suit? I'm like, I remember when he murdered that 16-year-old, but continue.
I mean, he was only recently added back to Twitter or Facebook. He's still, basically silenced by big tech. I mean, Fox News is barely featuring him.
It's that
CNN, all the cable
it's the
news
2011 NDAA, man, the Smoot Munt.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Yeah. The indefinite detention provision and the propaganda provision.
You like
Propaganda.
Kennedy. You like Kennedy, though, right?
I mean, he's better than Biden. I wouldn't say I'm a Kennedy supporter, but he's definitely a better alternative.
Kennedy is everything about Kennedy is bad except for the fact that the establishment doesn't like him.
There are a lot of
not
issues with
What do you not like about him?
His position on guns, his position on climate change, his position on
immigration,
his position on
lot of the woke stuff, the civil rights
bureaucracy in general. I said last night, and I'm going to say this probably a million times between now and the election. I want someone that is going to get into office and make substantive cuts to cabinet level bureaucracies. So I want entire bureaucracies gone. I want people fired. I want people to lose jobs, because that's the first thing that whenever people start talking about cuts, they're like, oh, all the people that are going to lose their jobs. Yes, a lot of people. Friggin' load of people have to lose their jobs because the government is bloated and way too big. So I want real cuts. Get rid of the Department of Transportation. Get rid of HUD. Get rid of the EPA. Get rid of a big portion of cabinet level bureaucracies.
I mean, I agree. I think you shouldn't be penalized for being a capitalist, but I think if people that want to be lazy and sit at home and play video games, they should give it a UBI. I'm cool with giving them.
Give them UBI.
I'm cool with giving free money to people that are lazy. Yes,
Why?
but I'm also cool with rewarding people that work hard.
But how do you then? Where does the money come from to pay the lazy people?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it probably come from taxes.
So you're going to take.
That's not where taxes come. That's not where money comes from in the first place.
Yeah, I mean they're just creating money on debt. But the general core concept there is you are taking the savings of the hardworking to give it to the people who refuse to work, and we know for a fact historically that just causes systemic collapse. It's the history of all these communist countries.
What else is the solution? I mean, like I said, I don't want to penalize people who work hard. I think you should be rewarded. You work hard.
No taxes if you work.
Okay, but then the people that just don't want to do anything, they're going to go commit crimes. They're going to do things.
Right.
How do we stop them from doing that? You got to give them a free little handout.
Jail.
That's not being enforced.
Doesn't always work.
That's not being enforced anywhere. Look at California.
Right.
Criminals reign supreme.
No.
No, but they do offer criminals UBI or money to stay out of jail, and that doesn't work either.
And also,
why would a UBI keep someone from committing a crime?
We're talking about hypothetically too. You didn't say, what does work now and stuff. We're talking hypothetically because we don't have UBI right now either. So
I'm open-minded. I'm just saying to me what resonated with me. I'm open-minded to hearing everyone's views and making a good conclusion. But I just feel like, what are we going to do to stop? There's people getting robbed. There's all this stuff happening. People aren't safe in certain places.
Arrest them.
yeah.
But that's not happening, dude.
But so start to do
No,
it.
they're getting arrested. They're just not getting held. It's DAs.
But not even. But like, if you come to me and say, okay, there's a lot of crime. We have two solutions. I can give the criminal your money, or I can arrest him. I'm like, arrest him. So if you're asking someone to take an action, I will ask for the arrest.
I understand. I agree with you, but there's no one being arrested.
Shoot the criminal.
I understand that.
Self-defense.
If it was up to me, you'd be rewarded for doing good deeds, and if you lose privileges if you do a bad deed. But
that's kind of what we got now.
So the issue is,
supposed to be,
if there is no arrest happening, and you are proposing we take action, right? A new action be taken. Then how about we settle on arrest them?
I think people should feel safe. People are not feeling safe when they go to places like San Francisco, Oakland. Their cars are getting broken into. They're getting robbed.
Do you think that we should legislate ought?
I don't know what that is.
Ought. You said people should. People ought to feel safe. Do you think that we should legislate things to the way that they ought to be?
Yes.
I don't think that we can do that.
Well,
I don't think that you can because
strengthening law enforcement.
It would be great. Like people shouldn't have to suffer at all. Like people shouldn't
I
get
agree.
sick. People
You should be able to send your children out in the middle of the night and not have them worry about getting robbed. And
But that's not reality.
that's fantasy land. I mean,
I
like you,
understand that, but
you should send your kids out knowing that it's possible that there's.
But the policies aren't going to change.
Policies aren't going to change.
People are still going to vote the same way. They're going to same people are going to be in there. And they're going to let people off.
But policies
How do
aren't
you
going to change.
it?
Policies aren't going to change people. The problem you're talking about is not a policy problem. It's a people problem. If people are violent in your society, it's not a policy problem. The problem is people.
They should be penalized.
The solution is probably going to have to be the boot.
Right.
I agree, but I'm just saying that's not happening.
Well, it has
Right, we
worked.
agree.
It
We
has
agree it's
worked
not
in the
happening, but we want
past.
it to
It's
be
not
happening.
impossible to happen.
I'm for it.
We know what policies will work to resolve the crime issue. It's not a complicated formula. Bring back stop and frisk. Bring back stronger
No, stop
law
and frisk is
enforcement.
absolutely wrong.
Well, you're going to have to do something, obviously, to return back to. I mean, you can't go on.
I lived in New
forever
York City. I lived
with
in New York
this issue.
City.
With homeless
during the
people on the
Giuliani
ground.
years
Right.
and during Bloomberg, it was a pretty safe place.
Much safer.
The thing is, it was safe because they did violate people's rights. The stop and frisk
why are you
stuff,
and
why are you
frisk.
opposed to stop and frisk?
because it
Stop
violates
and
the Fourth
frisk.
Amendment clearly.
Is a violation of the Second and Fourth Amendment. The premise of
Considering
stop-
how bad things are right now,
Nope, no
it doesn't
way.
matter. You wouldn't
Don't care.
Not even
Absolutely
a little
not.
bit.
Bro, you're not going to be able to come to me and say crime is bad, therefore the Constitution is void.
Yeah,
Never
no
going
way.
to happen. I would rather see a 18-year-old young
Well, it's not a
black man
violation
in
of
the
the
Bronx
Constitution.
Yes,
can
it
carry
is.
12 guns if he wants to, because Second Amendment is clear. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It does not say beneath it, based on your poverty level, based on your race, whether or not you committed crimes. I am partial to the argument made before me that there is due process and you can have your rights taken from you, like you can lose your freedom of movement and you get put in a box if you commit a crime. But what happened with stop and frisk was dudes who had guns were being stopped solely on the idea that it's illegal to have a gun. And then they started frisking people who did not have guns under the premise that some people who live near you do. And I'm like, if the premise is unconstitutional and is used against a person who doesn't even have a gun, you've used an unconstitutional action to violate the rights of someone not even associated with the law you passed unconstitutionally in the first place. It is like 2 layers of psychotic unconstitutional action.
I think you're over exaggerating how many people's rights were violated in this. I mean, the bottom line was the cities were much safer under Giuliani. New York City was, crime was at a decades low. You didn't have people, homeless people in the streets. You didn't have people violently.
Homeless people has nothing to do with stop and frisk.
Well, I mean, it's part of the larger problem of lawlessness and abandoning, the ability to enforce basic laws and enforce basic competence at that level, at an administrative leadership level. So,
In 2022, 15,102 stops were recorded. In 2021, 8,947. In 2020, 9,544. 2019 was 13,459. 11,000, 11,000, 12,000. 2015 was 22,000. 2014 was 45,000. 2013 was 191,000. 2012 was 532,000. 2011 was 685,000. And the pretext for this was the Second Amendment.
That's just New York City, right?
That's just stop and frisk was a New York City policy, and Bloomberg said explicitly that it was being done in black neighborhoods because that's where the crime was. If you want to make that argument and bring up the racial stuff, I'm actually I'm willing to hear it because that Bloomberg said he was doing it. But ultimately, where I stop is the Second Amendment says you have a right to keep and bear arms. New York, it was ruled unconstitutional what they were doing in barring people from getting weapons. I do not even agree with Kavanaugh on his ruling on this, where he was like, but permitting should be allowed.
Nope.
Screw off. The founding fathers knew, like, Halliburton has bombs. They're a private company. Okay. These massive multinational military industrial complex companies, they are private entities with war machines and doomsday weapons, things we probably can't even think of. And then the government comes between us and them and says, you guys can't have a 9mm handgun. These guys can have nukes. Screw that. When people during the colonial period had frigates, had privateers, they were corsairs, they had grape shot. They could fire cannons and decimate a seaside town. Just one random guy. That was always allowed. They would commission them. The crown would be like, hey, I hear you got a warship. And they'd be like, I do. Be like, You want some money?
Can we
want
borrow
you.
it?
Yeah, can we borrow? Will you fly a black flag and go disrupt French trade lines? I'm like, you got it. So that still exists today, in that you have private military industrial complex companies. But back then, you had individuals who were captains of big ships who ran their small. You could call it a company. Now, it wasn't like a formal company. It was a company in a basic sense. That never changed. And when the founding fathers said the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, they're talking about the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is my problem with stop and frisk outright. I get it. You want to prevent crime? I don't think you have a right to go up to somebody like, you got a gun there, buddy? Because we made those illegal, even though the Constitution says they're not. That's nonsense to me. That being said, I think
the real issue is no one's allowed to carry on them.
Absolutely.
That's the real issue. If you have a Second Amendment objection, your focus should be on that. And obviously,
more guns.
With the issue with stop and frisk, though, if you've reached a point where your city has gotten so bad where you can't go to work, where you can't take the subway without fear of being mugged, where you have a high probability of being mugged or worse, that becomes an issue.
Here's a solution. Everybody can have a gun.
Yeah.
And this problem solved.
But you still need law enforcement there. There's no way of getting out of
but
it.
law enforcement doesn't.
And you need strong law
doesn't show up to crimes, right? Police show up after the fact. And we do have an issue with most police encounters people have is over petty offenses not related to crime. The instance of a police officer chasing down a criminal is substantially lower than a cop stopping someone for jaywalking. I still think we need law enforcement. We absolutely do need someone to act as a neutral arbiter between conflicts. There's a fight breaking out. There's a robbery happening. There should be someone you could call that we bestow an authority for specific reasons, but they need to be held to a higher standard. Now, when it comes to, I shouldn't feel unsafe when I get on a train. There's a certain point where I say, I can't control whether you feel safe or not. You walk through a dark alley, you're not going to feel safe. But I also agree you should be able to have a gun or some kind of weapon. And then if you're on a subway train and some guys walk up, you can say, back the F off and show your say, if you want to come at me, I have the ability to protect myself from whatever it is you're doing. I firmly believe that I think you look at the data. Law-abiding citizens with guns are not going out and committing these crimes. The majority of gun owners are law-abiding, are not committing crimes. So why have we barred the people who don't commit crimes from defending themselves from the people committing the crimes? It makes no sense. I believe that if we were just outright be like, you can have guns, and we're going to make it super easy, you can walk in, you can buy one, we would actually see a massive reduction in violent crimes. I do think, as a fair point, you'll probably see accidental discharges.
Well, how's the crime rate in Texas? Like, so everyone has a gun in Texas?
No,
they don't.
Not everybody has a gun.
I mean, that's a trope about people having guns in Texas. I think Texas just passed conconstitutional carry.
I'm just trying to compare the crime rates.
But Texas is not a good example because Texas actually had I think training requirement. So if you want to get a handgun, it was actually relatively difficult. Whereas West Virginia, I think since then, you walk into a gun store and say, I live here, and they go, here's your gun, sir. Yeah. You got to fill out a federal background check form. Some people get jammed up. It takes a while. Some people, you get it within 15 minutes. But a lot easier in West Virginia. And West Virginia's crime is below average. Below average crime here. I learned this when I was 18 or so. There was a jurisdiction. I can't remember where exactly it was. It might have been in Michigan or Wisconsin. They banned guns. Crime went up 80%. And they had an emergency session to unban guns. Crime went back down. Like, it's a fact. Growing up in Chicago, they know, they laugh. Like, there's not going to be a cop to stop them. You can't, if I call the cops and I say, a 5'10", olive-skinned male came up to me, brandished a firearm, and took my wallet, you know what they're going to say to me? Well, take a report. Have a nice day. Is anybody hurt? Have a nice day. That's it. They're not going to find the guy.
Why aren't they using geo-tracking, like you say you're on Snapchat or whatever, it says where you are. So if a crime's committed, technically any violent crime's committed, they'll know whatever cell phone was there, right?
Yep.
So why aren't they ever using that?
You cannot subpoena a phone company for the records of innocent people because someone else may have committed a crime.
It just
you
seems
can't
like
violate
it seems
my
like
right.
an easy solution to solve some of these crimes.
Constitutional violation.
I'm sure they use it.
I say I was on the North and Damon in Chicago, and a guy mugged me, and they go, okay, we'll subpoena the phone records of every person who was in that area, Now you're violating the rights of 5,000 people because one guy
But they
committed a
use
crime.
it on certain cases for sure if they really want to. If they don't care about that mugging, but they care if it was the president getting mugged. If they care if it was somebody important.
I think it's anarcho tyranny. They don't care that these people are committing these crimes. But anyway, I've been ranting. I want to read super chats. We got to read super chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member at timcast.com to support the work that we do directly. And follow me on Twitter at Timcast if you would like to watch the newest and first commercial from Cast Brew Coffee. It is a horror short. It's 30 seconds long, starring Ian and Roberto. It was supposed to be Roberto Jr. Roberto Jr. had a heart attack. So what we did was we put a green screen in Chicken City and we filmed Roberto walking past it. It was supposed to be Roberto Jr. and we had to clean his feet off and he just had a heart attack. It's a
There's
Oh,
too much
story.
pressure for him. He couldn't.
He wasn't even scared. That's the crazy thing. Like, I was making sure everything was okay. And Roberto Jr. was raised by people. He was totally chill and was getting his feet washed. And then just all of a sudden he went, ugh, and then was dead. And we were like, what the just happened?
Can we have a moment of silence for Roberto Jr.?
All right, let's read some super chats. I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, people need to realize, should America fall to evil, there is nowhere in the world you can escape to from either the Great Eye in America or China. I don't agree with that. I don't completely agree with that. It's not going to be fun, put it that way. Waffle Sensei says, to the next super chatter, hey, you got to be quicker than that, buddy. I'm Not Your Guy friend says, I beat him to the first chat, LOL. You didn't, unfortunately. I'm Not Your Buddy Guy, once again, the first super chatter.
Does he super chat at like 8:05?
It's 7:43.
7:43.
The moment we put up the placeholder for the show, he goes in and he super chats. Yeah. So if you guys want to beat him, you got to get here 7:40 on the dot, refreshing the Timcast IRL page. As soon as it goes up, you got to get in there. You got to super chat.
Yeah, 8:05. That's just like 3 hours late, basically.
Yeah, right.
You might as well show up tomorrow.
Just don't. Yeah, exactly.
Monday even.
I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says, as a Canadian, I know Trudeau never would have tried what he did, what he did to the truckers if Trump were president. Your influence goes beyond your borders. And I pray Trump wins 2024 so we can purge this evil, for I fear what will happen next. Anyways, I won't be super chatting for a while. Oh no, things are getting busier at my second job, so I will still watch, just won't be live, sadly. Cheers. Well, I'm not your guy, friend. This is your time to shine. If you show up on time every time, you could be the first super chatter now that I'm Not Your Buddy Guy is bowing out.
He's had a good run here for a long time.
He has. Yeah.
Clear It Call says you need to get Oliver Anthony on your culture show. His song Rich Men North of Richmond is striking a chord across the world. It is beautifully produced, well done. And it's you know, I was asking people about great works because we can look throughout history, we can play songs that are considered great works that stand the test of time. Bohemian Rhapsody, man, one of the best songs ever written. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking, like, where are the modern versions of that? The songs that we remember forever. Mm-hmm. And they exist. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just like, what are they? I think this song is going to be, I think this will be, it's not going to be like Bohemian Rhapsody. Don't get me wrong. Because of the way the culture war especially is. But I think this song will persist for a very, very, very long time in the memories of people who are involved in it. I think people for a long time will be listening to it. Basically what I'm trying to say. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because all this damn country does is keep kicking them down. You hear today's viral music video. It was fantastic. It was very well done. Everybody's super chatting. Rich Men North of Richmond. Amazing song going viral. Working Man's Anthem.
I'm really curious to see if he like goes on tour or something like this. You said
John Rich is
He
gonna.
said that he's going to go on tour. He said if you can't make it to this next batch of shows,
Richmond has a big, whatever we're going to call this genre.
RVA?
RVA is having a music festival like
okay.
late August. They should just book him right now and have him go on.
Where is that?
Now's their best chance.
Richmond,
if they
it's
wait, it's
like
going to be
in
too
Virginia.
expensive. Is he in Richmond?
I can't tell from his Instagram. He posts pictures in what I would call Southern Virginia and then also pictures in West Virginia. So he's obviously sort of in an Appalachia range.
We got bad news, everybody. Crazy Savior says, looks like the LK99 room temperature superconductor has more or less been disproven. It was a distraction.
That's what I thought too.
Hunter Biden farted and they went, super science. And we were like, oh, look at that. Steven Say says, Reagan's SDI was testing space-based lasers. Yes, it's the Strategic Defense Initiative. And what they wanted was satellites that could blow up ICBMs in midair. If they were building that back in the 80s, what do they have now?
True.
Fire Sky 15 says, Tim, heard of the new song? It's going big. Yes, Fire Sky. Everyone has super chat us to make sure we knew about that song. And I'm glad. Spread the word. Listen to it. Buy it on iTunes, wherever you can.
Yeah, look it up.
Mark Kiley says, today on Scott Adams' show, he talked about a source of his who saw miles of burned cars with bodies still in them. So the death count in Hawaii is likely higher.
Yeah, they're talking about pushing 100 now.
They said thousands were missing. I mean,
Wow.
it seems crazy.
That's why I'm thinking, like, I get why people think this may have been an act of war. This was the equivalent of a bomb dropping on this place. The fires were so insane.
Yeah. I mean, those images looked like, as we said before, it looked like it was hit by a nuclear bomb. This is the worst I've seen Hawaii look, I mean, in history since Pearl Harbor. So it's incredible. I wouldn't put it past anything that at this point, that this might be something other than the official narrative we're receiving.
Directed energy weapons.
That's interesting.
Possibly.
ER says, I was on the side of the island without power since Monday night, and I think it was started from a car trying to cut across because traffic was backed up all day in town from down power lines. So a car accident happened or something?
Don't know.
No.
Maury says, in response to that video of that woman in the wedding ring, could be a white monkey used for propaganda. This is a thing they do in China. A lot of people are pointing out they have a thing called white monkey actors. That's
Yes.
creepy, dude.
But it's like by what is it? It's by Bai Hui Zhao. I forgot what it is
Bai
exactly.
Zhao.
Bai Zhao. Yeah.
That's
right.
that's white
Bai-
left.
Yeah, Baitsua.
Baitsua.
Bai
That's it.
Zhao. Yeah.
It's
that's
white
right.
left.
Yeah.
White monkey actor is something different.
Yeah. It's. I'll look it up.
But it would be by something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we at? I'm Not Your Buddy Guy says multiple fires in Canada were started by arsonists. Just Google RCMP arrests arsonists, then check the dates. Perhaps, I think arson, obviously, but I think a majority of the fires are just a lightning storm. Because you could track the lightning storm before even any of the news started. Unless they have weather machines that can make lightning storms, who knows?
Possibly. Or some lasers.
Harp, baby.
Yeah. Or whatever it is they're doing in Antarctica. Who knows?
Yeah.
Damian Master says, I talked with a high-level IBM guy who told me in the 90s our government commissioned a computer simulation about what would happen if a hypothetical satellite rained radiation down on a city from space. The devastation was unreal. What movie was it where they had the microwave beam driving, melting people or something?
Microwave beam.
Yeah, it was like some kind of doomsday weapon. There was in G.I. Joe, they had the rod from God. The tungsten rod in space.
Yeah.
And they blow up London. I love that how in the G.I. Joe lore, London is just gone. Millions dead. Brian B says, YAL-1 is a 2010 megawatt laser the Air Force tested on a Boeing 747 with a multi-mile range. New Raytheon H-4 is a pickup truck bed mounted with a 10 kilowatt laser. A megawatt laser. That's nuts. Jeez. Mitch the engineer says 18-year-olds identifying as conservatives by what standards? I get idolizing Andrew Tate, but supporting abortion and taxing the rich is conservative compared to absolute communism. The Overton window has shifted that far. Yup. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
We could probably pull the study. I haven't done it yet. And they usually list the questions they asked to determine it. So
it might just be like they voted for Trump. You know what I mean?
They said they would vote for Trump
Yeah.
if they could.
And then the left goes, that means they're far right. You can be like, you can ask people, ask young people, this is the study you want to do. Go to 12th graders and say, do you hate Trump? And when they go, not really, be like, okay,
Far right.
And then you can be like 98% of 12th graders identified as far right.
Far
when
right
asked.
fascist.
The question that was asked was, do you hate Donald Trump? Are you a communist? No? Far right.
No.
That's actually, hey, we should do that.
true.
We should do that. We should get someone to go to a campus and ask people, are you a communist? And when they say no, check the box for far right.
Yes.
And then we could be like, 100% of the college students were far right. We were shocked to find this.
I would love to do that. Let's get
Yeah.
let's
so
get some
down.
people to
Let's
do
do
that.
it. Let's do it. Let's get Elad, me, and you. We'll go do it.
We'll go do it.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Are you a communist? No, you're far right. Antifa polling.
Are
We
you a
can do
communist?
skit.
No, Nazi.
Self-identified as Nazis.
Yeah.
And then it's like the questions that were asked were, are you a communist? And they said no. Daniel Domestic says conservatives need to go full nuclear. Trump Tate 2024, the first Muslim VP. Let's go.
That's a terrible idea.
I mean, I
like it.
Yeah, I'd vote Trump Tate.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know. I'd vote for a lot of things other than Democrats.
I don't think Biden's going to be the nominee. So
I agree. I think Newsom.
Yeah,
yeah.
most likely.
Cody McPherson says, changing culture today. I had an awesome workout listening to All That Remains and wearing my the ATF is shirt. Remember, it's if you're not fit, you're gonna die.
That's right. I was in the gym for 2 hours today.
Wow.
Just hanging out, checking your phone.
Yeah, just hanging out. Some cardio, man.
Thomas TJG says, every time you do your intro, I'm reminded of that one episode where you said, we're about to be demonetized. Take it away, Luke. And he goes off. I think that was the Epstein one. I'm not sure. But I was like, we were talking about it beforehand. And then I was like, oh, they're definitely going to demonetize this episode. We talk about that. And I was like, I'll just let you intro it. And then I was like, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're about to be demonetized. Luke. And then Luke just like, here's what happened. He goes off. That was fun. What do we got? Barney Boyle says, Tim, I don't know why anyone would think our own government would allow Hawaii to be attacked right as we're itching for a conflict with an Asian adversary. If that were the case, though, they'd immediately say China did it. They'd be like, we believe incendiary device launched by our enemies. Instead, they're saying, that's crazy. Why would you think that's happening? You're crazy.
You so crazy.
Yeah, you got to
Why are
calm
you so
down.
crazy?
Caleb Piranovan says, hi, Tim. Have you heard about Operation Popeye? When the U.S. government seeds clouds with silver in the Vietnam War to extend monsoon season, and do you think that we could be doing something like this in China right now? Weather warfare. I don't know about Operation Popeye, but we have other ways of cloud seeding. We can use infrared lasers to do it.
Yeah.
So this is something that's been around for about a decade or longer, where I think that the research was done in Germany. They used infrared lasers to excite molecules, causing them to attract to each other, which then condensed and something like that. I don't know.
Form clouds, yeah.
So we have easier ways of cloud seeding other than 70-year-old, 50-year-old technology.
It's also a monsoon season in China anyways, so.
Yeah. But I do think that is a powerful war weapon.
Yeah.
If you can use weather, then on the world stage, they can only accuse you of the craziest things. Granted, when it comes to war, it doesn't matter what is true or not.
Right.
No.
Like when the U.S. is like, oh, it's a war, Ukraine's fighting Russia. Russia's not thinking that. Russia's like, the U.S. is fighting us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what we claim. They're at war. Mm-hmm. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I disagree. Pardon them all. It is better than that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent person suffer. It's been 2+ long years, bud. Agreed. Completely agree. At this point, yes. Commutation and pardoning for all. Good point. There are people in there who have been held without charge or trial for 2 years.
Which is insane.
Absolutely nuts.
And there are a few groups who are actually standing up for these people. There's Patriot Freedom Project, which is really good. But aside from them, these people don't have the help, don't have the advocacy that they should be getting. So more people have to step up. That's another thing that more people should put pressure on their Congress people to talk about more. But these victims still languish behind bars in many cases in the DC gulag, as they call it. And they're not getting the representation or the, just sort of the public representation that they should be getting for not committing any crimes at all in many cases, or, just having a misdemeanor lodged against them.
Charles E. says, speaking of pro-American musicians, Tim and Phil, when are you going to talk to John Schaefer of the metal band Iced Earth and Sons of Liberty? He was arrested on January 6th, and his life and the band have been on hold since.
Yeah, he probably has to get out of jail first.
Is he in jail?
I'm not sure what the situation is. He did go inside the Capitol, and he was in. I don't know if he was in a fight or anything like that, but there was some pictures of him maybe in a scuffle with the police. But I don't know, John. It was a bad idea to go into the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is there's that video where the cop takes a selfie with people. Like the cops
Yeah.
opened the door for.
Cops were waving them in. So
Yeah. In
On-
hindsight, it was a bad idea, but in the moment, no one could tell what was going on.
It's just look, the federal law enforcement that are arresting people who walked around like outside. These are evil people. They know that
and
they're
the
targeting
shooting
innocent
actually
people.
about it. It's heinous. It's
You want to make an argument about the riot? make an argument. I like people who are punching and fighting cops. They shouldn't have done that. People standing on the barricades. They shouldn't have done that. Ray Epps advocating for this stuff should be charged for incitement. But there were people who just walked around on a lawn.
Right.
And there's law enforcement who are going after them knowing that's all they did because they are depraved, evil, and psychotic sociopathic individuals. And this is a huge problem in our country. That's all I can say.
They shouldn't enforce it. They should just.
They're evil, though, dude. They're evil.
I know, but there should be like some billionaire dude who's like, "Yo, I want what's right. I'm gonna give you money. Just quit your job, and we're just not gonna enforce this. We're not gonna arrest innocent people."
It's like going to a demon that likes to murder people and being like, "I will pay you to not do that." And they're like, "But I enjoy doing it." And you're like, "But if I give you money, will you stop?" They're like, "No, because I like doing it." It's like, okay, these law enforcement guys that are going after innocent people, they're probably earmuffs family members, earmuffs for your kids. They're probably going home after they arrest
They're
these people.
NPCs.
They're probably arresting these people who they know are innocent and then going home and beating off while thinking about it.
And there's just still so much that we don't know about that day. How many Ray Eppses were in the crowd? I mean, that was just the tip of the iceberg.
A lot.
Right. Absolutely.
I was at Occupy Wall
Absolutely.
Street, and every type of event like this has tons of is cheating with
The
It's
full
like
scope,
all
we
different
won't know for
agencies.
years.
Yeah.
And then one guy is like, "I would like to advocate for this behavior." And the other guy goes, "You should do something worse." And he goes, "That's a good idea. You should too." And then they both arrest each other and they're like, "Oh, you were FBI. I was CIA."
How do we not know who's starting the violence? Is that all the agents that are starting the violent acts? There's a lot of peaceful people there. We know that. I'm not saying there's
It
not.
seems that
I mean,
way.
the FBI
Seems
has.
that way.
We've had FBI informants testify that they were in touch with people who were like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to this." In the lead up. So either they knew it was dangerous and they were like, "But no one should send in the National Guard or do anything," or they wanted it to be violent and bad. Like those are the only explanations.
Right, absolutely. And what explains the actions of Capitol Hill police that day? I mean, we still haven't really gotten full answers as to
for
why.
the innocent people that are still in jail, why isn't there an outpour of people like descending on this, trying to be like, get justice? Like, how are they allowed?
Because
Well,
most
they're being
people
silenced,
don't.
too.
Most people don't know that there are people still in jail. They don't know that they were arrested
no charges.
With no charges. Most people aren't aware of what's going on because, like,
They're not allowed to talk about it.
yeah, if
Well, the
you
corporate press
watch
is evil.
this show and stuff like that, you're getting information that your average person just doesn't get because the mainstream media doesn't talk about these things. They didn't talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. They didn't talk about the people that get arrested at January 6th. They don't get into any kind of specifics because they don't want the average person to know about those things.
It just seems insane that there's people that are committing armed robberies, that are doing violent crimes, that are serving less time than
It
people that
does
just-
seem insane, doesn't it?
What's
Almost
also-
like
what's-
it's actually happening.
It really does. You're right. It does seem
I mean,
insane.
what's insane is that the current occupant of the White House got 81 million votes. We're not allowed to talk about that. I mean, it's like...
Well, you are. I just think that Republicans got outplayed heavily.
Yeah.
Ballot harvesting, rule changes, executive action.
Still never see a Biden sign anywhere. You'll
Oh, no.
never see people
Yeah, but
advocating.
but
or
people-
Biden bumper sticker.
But you will see people saying F Trump. You'll see the F Trump stickers, the F Trump signs.
I
You'll
did
see
get
those.
I did get a couple mail-in ballots to my place with multiple ballots, but I don't know.
I got. Wait, I'm going to read one more super chat.
You
before
do
we
know
wind
the
up.
76 million Trump voters were 100% authentic, though.
Let's read one more. Jason Hutchinson says, "Tim, get Jacob Angeli Chansley on the show. Dude is awesome. He can't leave yet.
Yeah.
The moment he can, he's welcome to come on the show." I hit him up right when he got. I was like, "Bro, you got to come out." And he's like, "I can't." And I was like, "Okay, well, whenever you can, let's have him on. I'd be really interested in that." All right, everybody, if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, become a member by clicking join us to support the show, and go to go to twitter.com/timcast or x.com/timcast, I guess, and watch the Cast Brew commercial we just put up. We're really excited about it. We're going to be running it on all the big social platforms. And I might even see about getting it on TV, but I think it's 5 seconds too long. So we'll figure that one out. But yeah, well, do you want to shout anything out before we wrap up?
Just I could be followed Paul Ingrassia on Twitter. I also have a Substack, Paul Ingrassia, and I could be found across all social media platforms. But thank you very much. Really
Right on.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a really enlightening time. Hopefully, the light prevails in the end for innocent people that are suffering. I don't like that. I think we want to bring justice to people that really deserve justice, and people that really had good intentions should not be suffering, who were just
100% agree.
wanting to live in have liberty and have a better country. I think it's unfair if some of them are suffering, and appreciate bringing awareness. I'm Robbie Mann. I love all you guys. I'm on Instagram. It's just Robbie Man, and
Thanks for
have a
having
great
me.
weekend.
I am Phil Labonte. The band is All That Remains. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. I'm Phil Labonte. I'm Phil That Remains on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Twitter.
I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. Give me a follow over there. The band is All That Remains, where you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Twitter, Twitter. We're on Twitter, but we don't play any music on Twitter. We should play music on Twitter. Anyways.
You should.
Well, I'm glad I got to be on tonight. It's been awesome. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. You should go to Timcast.com, click on the read tab. You can see the work from me, from Chris Bertman, from Cassandra McDonald, from all of our awesome journalists. Follow at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. It's the best. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Thank you so much.
And I am Serge.com. I am at Serge.com everywhere, including Twitter. Follow me. Talk to me, argue with me. You know I like it.
We will see you all with clips over the weekend, and then Monday. Thanks for hanging out.